Chapter 1. 9 p.m. The night was alluring. Tongming drank a little too much at her bachelor party, so she was taken back to the apartment by her fiancé. However, just as she opened her eyes with a splitting headache, she saw a couple kissing passionately under the dim lights. Tongming felt like she was struck by lightning as she stared blankly at the couple kissing passionately by her bedside. The anger in her heart immediately exploded. Don't mess around. Tongming has just fallen asleep, the man said as he restrained himself from rubbing her waist. What? Are you afraid your fiancé will wake up? Yuro asked angrily. You are getting married tomorrow. This night you should give it to me. Babe, stop fooling around. Let's go to another room. The man coaxed seductively. No, I want to do it here. I want to do it in front of her. Yuro quickly unbuttoned the man's shirt as the couple once again kissed passionately. Tongming held back her tears. She never imagined the fiancé she was going to marry the next day would be cheating on her with a mistress in front of her bed. Be good, let's go to the bathroom. Don't you like the bathtub? In that case, you can go pee first. Yuro pushed against the man's chest. After the man left, she walked over to Tongming and sneered. Tongming, tomorrow, I will not let Yufan have the chance to register his marriage with you. I am pregnant, and he is mine. Tongming clenched her hands into fists and forced herself not to make a sound. It was not until the couple's passionate moans could be heard from the bathroom that Tongming finally felt her world shatter. 3 years ago, she was still Beijing's #1 model. But for the sake of this man, she gave up everything and gave her position as a model to Yuro. It turned out, she had been working hard for someone else. No, she was dreaming. This was a nightmare. Everything would be fine once she woke up. Tongming tried her best to lie to herself. But in the middle of the night, Yuro left the hotel with Han Yufan, claiming she wasn't feeling well. Yet Han Yufan had simply abandoned her. But they were going to register their marriage tomorrow. With a bitter smile, Tongming drove to the civil affairs office as planned the next morning. As soon as she got out of the car, she gave Han Yufan a phone call. However, all she heard was a cold reply. Yuro was injured by the stage. I need to deal with some urgent matters first. We'll talk about the registration another day. There's no other day, Tongming reminded herself in despair. Tongming turned around and put on her sunglasses. Just as she was about to leave, she saw a tall figure walking towards her. Dressed in a dark blue retro suit, he had a burgundy scarf tucked into his chest pocket. Looking down, his legs were long and slender, and he wore a pair of brown leather shoes that shone brightly. This man is too oppressive, like a noble emperor from the Middle Ages. Especially after he walked closer, although he was wearing sunglasses. His chiseled features and sexy thin lips were enough to drive anyone crazy. It was the CEO of Hai Rui Entertainment, Mo Ting. Back when she was still famous, they had met once at a ball. He's also getting married today? President, Miss Chi didn't arrive on time. She's 10 minutes late. The assistant behind him said respectfully, call the Chi family and tell them that those who are going to be late for their wedding don't need to come anymore. The man said coldly. But the chairman said that you must get married today. He won't object even if you marry a transvestite. The assistant said timidly. Then pick a random socialite from the crowd. I'll give you half an hour. The man said in a calm voice, appearing a little unreasonable. It turned out, they were in the same boat, but they were different. Mo Ting was sitting on a silver platter, so he could easily get anyone he wanted. As a rich bachelor, the last thing he needed was love. He simply needed to deal with the marriage of his elders. Suddenly Tongming had an idea. She removed her sunglasses and approached the man. President Mo, your bride hasn't arrived yet, and my groom ran away. Why don't we get married together? Mo Ting's assistant was stunned. How could a woman be so bold? But Tongming's back was straight. She had gathered all her courage. Mo Ting removed his sunglasses, revealing a pair of black eyes. His pupils were like diamonds, emitting a sharp glow. A moment later, he turned to his assistant and asked, give me her information. Of course, the assistant knew Tongming's identity. He immediately pulled out his phone and searched for her name before handing over the information respectfully. 2 minutes later, the man's lips moved slightly as he replied with one word. Okay. Tongning felt she was lucky to have met Mo Ting. He didn't need to use women, he didn't need love, and he definitely wouldn't lack a partner in bed. Plus, she wanted Han Yufan to regret it. The couple's marriage procedures were quickly completed. In just half an hour, Tongning received her marriage certificate. From now on, she was a married woman. President Mo, I wonder if you have some time to listen to me? Get in. Mo Ting put on his sunglasses and strode out of the registration hall. Tongning followed closely behind Mo Ting. After boarding the Rolls-Royce, she looked at Mo Ting nervously. Thank you for marrying me. I will do whatever you need me to do. However, there are 2 conditions that I hope you can promise me. Speak. Mo Ting tiredly loosened his collar. Firstly, unless it's a last resort, our marriage cannot be made public. Secondly, don't interfere with my private affairs. Don't worry, since we are already married, I won't have too much contact with other men. Hearing Tongning's words, Mo Ting's lips curved slightly as a dangerous aura filled the car. I promise you, but I will give you some time to sort out your messy past and get married to me on a trial basis. In half a year's time, I will announce our marriage to the public. Thank you. Tongning nodded. Also, I don't agree with a married couple living apart. I will give you 3 days to move to the location I give you. My assistant will contact you after that. Tongning did not object. Since they were married, this request was reasonable. So she nodded her head obediently. I promise you. Good. After the couple came to an agreement, Tongning stepped out of Mo Ting's car and got her assistant to sit in the driver's seat. She looked at Mo Ting through the rearview mirror. President, are you heading back to the office? Or do you want to go back to the family home and tell the chairman? Follow Tongning in the car and tell me her whereabouts. Mo Ting instructed his assistant before getting out of the car. If she suddenly asked him to marry her, there was no way nothing had happened. As the CEO of a multinational entertainment company, it wasn't like he hadn't heard of Tongning's name before. She was once famous in the modeling industry. However, 3 years ago, Tongning suddenly rejected a top model agency, Star King's offer, and was completely blacklisted. Afterwards, she announced that she had signed with Tianyi Entertainment and had a good relationship with their boss, Han Yufan. Chapter 2. A supermodel had fallen from grace. But from the looks of it, Tongning's story was not limited to this. In reality, Tongning had never felt she was so brave to marry a stranger. But what was done, she had no regrets. Tongning returned to her car and prepared to go home. However, just as she was about to start the engine, she received a phone call from Han Yufan. Tongning, where are you right now? I am at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, just about to go home. Tongning tried her best to calm down. Euro has an important show to attend, go and replace her. I will get the makeup artist to put on a mask for you. No one will be able to tell it's you. Han Yufan used a commanding tone to make a request. Euro is injured. You have to work hard. Didn't Miss Mo get injured? The media should know she is at the hospital. But I have already asked someone to spread the word that Euro will attend with her injury. If I ask you to go, then go. How shameless. In the past, she had helped Mo Euro do many stupid things like this. It turned out, she was just using Mo Euro. But she didn't always end up helping Mo Euro. Tongning remained calm and nodded her head. Okay, tell me the time and address. I will be there in a moment. Tongning, we are about to get married. You should give Euro a boost. Her career is currently on the rise. I will give her a boost. Tongning said with a hidden meaning. In that case, I will hang up now. Let's have dinner together later. Han Yufan had no idea the tables had turned. He was probably sitting by Mo Euro's bedside, loving her tenderly. After Tongning hung up the phone, she gave her manager a phone call. As soon as her manager heard this, she was furious. President Han wants you to replace that B-grade model Mo Euro? Are you kidding me? If you hadn't retired, there would be no place for her in the modeling industry. Long Jia, I have already agreed. Tongning replied calmly. You really want to go? Her manager was so angry she wanted to vomit blood. Tongning and Mo Euro were both models at Tianyi Entertainment, but because of Tongning's retirement, her manager was also ridiculed. Tongning knew her manager was trying to defend her, so she smiled. I won't be so stupid as to let others use me again. Hearing Tongning's words, her manager suddenly came to life. Does that mean you have a plan? Long Jia, you are the only person I can trust now. Can you help me with something? Speak. The manager was completely loyal to Tongning. After all, their interests were aligned. Mo Euro deliberately pretended to be injured because she wanted to affect the top 10 model awards. Help me go to Tianhe Hospital. I understand. Get the proof that she was still in the hospital at that time and expose her. Her manager said excitedly. No, there's more news. She's pregnant, and the child is Han Yufan's. Also, I need you to help me prepare a statement about how Han Yufan has used me to replace Mo Euro on multiple occasions. As for which shows, I need Long Jia to find the evidence. At first, the manager was shocked, but she quickly understood the reason for Tongning's sudden change in attitude. What a shameless couple. Not only did they have an affair, they even treated Tongning like a servant. Tongning, don't worry. I will help you with these two matters. Tongning did not reply, but her heart was unprecedentedly calm. She would treat others the way they treated her. After thinking it through, Tongning quickly packed her things and drove to the venue on her own to meet up with Mo Euro's assistant at Tianhe. The assistant was a well-built married man. He was quite cunning, but of course he was also quite powerful. He was quite polite to Tongning. Although Tongning was past her prime, the Tang family behind her was not to be underestimated. What took you so long? Quick! Follow me inside to get your makeup done. What is today's show? Tongning asked as she was dragged inside. It's not that important, the assistant replied. In reality, this was a show from the famous French jewelry brand HF. After this show, Mo Euro was likely to become HF spokesperson. Originally, this contract was going to be ruined because of Mo Euro's injury, but since President Han wanted to make use of Tongning, he was more than happy to oblige. Actually, on the way here, Tongning had already done her research on the Crown's star jewelry show. For Mo Euro's assistant to lie to her like this, was she really that easy to fool? Thanks to Euro's current status, she has her own makeup room. You will be the finale. This is the jewelry you will be displaying in a moment. This is the schedule. The assistant said as he pointed to the jewelry on the makeup table. He then instructed the makeup artist to apply Tongning's makeup. Did Han Yufan think that by putting on a mask, no one would be able to recognize her as Tongning? Although she was taking a risk by doing this, she would definitely catch the adulterous couple by surprise. In reality, Mo Ting's assistant had been following Tongning the entire time. After asking around and finding out she was going to replace Mo Euro on the runway, he immediately gave Mo Ting a phone call. As soon as Mo Ting heard this, he immediately contacted his secretary. I want to go to HF's jewelry show. Make the arrangements immediately. Yes, President. It wasn't a high-class show, but he wanted to see Tongning's true abilities. 11 a.m. Hai Hall was already filled with classical music. It was obvious the show was about to start. Inside the makeup room, Tongning had already put on her makeup. She stood in front of a long mirror and waited patiently. She was wearing a white strapless, tight-fitting dress, simple but holy. She wore a golden mask on her face, giving off a mysterious aura. Her long hair was tied up behind her head, and a white rose was pinned in her hair. She looked incredibly otherworldly. The assistant stared at her in a daze. He thought to himself, even if Tongning stood still, she would still look stunning. Mo Euro was definitely going to be the spokesperson. Your way of entering is to sit on a rattan chair and descend from the sky. This bracelet is the Crown Star bracelet. Let me help you put it on. The assistant removed the bracelet and carefully clasped it on Tongning. However, Tongning was slimmer than Mo Euro, so the bracelet was a bit too big. It went all the way down to her arm. This was a bracelet the founder of HF had designed for his beloved daughter. In the middle of the golden bracelet was a crown inlaid with a white diamond. On both sides of the crown were two star-shaped flawless white gemstones. It symbolized the precious things her parents had for her. I can't wear it. What should I do? Do you trust me? Tongning suddenly asked Mo Euro's assistant. Right now, I can only trust you, the assistant nodded. At this point, he had no choice but to trust the model. This was Mo Euro's endorsement. If he messed it up, President Han would definitely kick him out. In that case, leave it to me, Tongming said confidently. Hurry and get ready. It's almost time for you to go on stage. The assistant did not notice Tongming's sharp eyes hidden under her eyelashes. Chapter 3. Tongming smiled as she nodded her head. She then lifted her dress and ran towards the backstage. As she was wearing a mask, if one had to point out a difference between her and Mo Euro, it would be her pair of legs that were known as one of the most beautiful in the world. Translator, Uni Editor. Uni. The show had reached its climax. As Tongming descended from the sky on her rattan chair, all the spotlights were focused on her body. However, her wrists were bare. There was no sign of the crowned star. What was going on? Everyone looked around for the crowned star, so they scanned Tongming from head to toe. Not long after, quite a few people noticed Tongming's slender and fair legs. That was a pair of legs that people would never forget once they saw them. Not long after, the golden-masked Tongming gave a confident smile as she gently and elegantly raised her hand. Tilting her head back, she lifted her left leg that was facing the audience and performed a beautiful dance pose. At that moment, the crowned star slid down her white dress and down her leg. It gave off a suffocating glow. Oh my God! Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. What was even more unforgettable was, Tongming continued to change her pose and movements. But no matter which pose she stopped in, the crowned star on her ankle would always display a different beauty. The entire venue erupted into a thunderous applause. Everyone in the audience stood up excitedly, just to give Tongming a round of applause. Amongst the crowd, in an unapproachable and secluded spot, Mo Ting focused his attention on Tongming on stage. His new wife, a former Beijing supermodel, had actually come to replace a B-grade model on the runway. But it had to be said, whether it was 3 years ago or 3 years after she retired, she was still the same model. She was only born for the runway. After the final pose, the jewelry show came to a perfect end. HF's founder was extremely satisfied with Tongming's final performance. Of course, he had no idea it was Tongming. He thought it was Mo Euro. He walked onto the runway from backstage and held out his hand like a gentleman. He then led Tongming to the front and bowed to thank the audience. Thank you, everyone. Of course, I would also like to thank Miss Mo for her performance in this show. It was truly wonderful. Tongming did not say a word, she simply bowed politely. However, to everyone's surprise, from the end of the runway, a sharp voice suddenly resounded. She is not Mo Euro. I've seen Mo Euro in person. She does not have such long legs. At that moment, everyone was stunned as they looked at Tongming suspiciously. They couldn't stop looking at her long legs. If you are really Miss Mo, please remove your mask. If not, then Tianyi Entertainment is a liar. The voices of suspicion grew louder and louder. Even HF's designers couldn't help but suspect that the woman beside them wasn't Mo Euro herself. Miss Mo, please take off your mask. The designer also wanted to know if she was Mo Euro. If she really wasn't, then their collaboration with Tianyi was over. Tongming appeared to be in a difficult position, but at this moment, she was surrounded on all sides. So, she had no choice but to remove her mask. In that instant, everyone gasped. In fact, some people immediately recognized the outdated model in front of them. She is Tongming. Everyone had been saying that ever since Tongming was banned, her status was no longer there. She was even worse than a wild model. Who would have thought? She had fallen to the point of replacing someone else on the runway. Was she purposely trying to create hype, or was she forced by the situation? Tongming, it's actually Tongming. The reporters quickly surrounded her, sandwiching Tongming in the middle with no way out. Miss Tang, can you explain to everyone that HF's jewelry show specifically invited Mo Euro? Why did you replace her in the end? As everyone knows, you were banned 3 years ago. Are you trying to use this show to return to the modeling industry? You are just an outdated model. Tell me, are you trying to steal Mo Euro's resources? Are you trying to take advantage of her injury to steal the endorsement that belongs to her? One look, and I can tell it's all hype. I told you. Mo Euro is already injured. How could she appear on the runway? What supermodel? She is simply a cheap model. The reporters' questions became more and more incisive. Some even began to speak without thinking. Outdated cheap model. This endorsement belongs to Euro. Return it to her. Tongming was forced back step by step, surrounded by the reporters and even pushed. At this moment, HF continued to attack Tongming. I will file a lawsuit against Tianyi Entertainment. This is fraud. I wanted Euro. How could you give me a third-rate model? The designer had no idea of Tongming's status 3 years ago. All he knew was, he hadn't seen a model like her in recent times. As for you, I'll see you in court. But for now, get out of my sight. You are not fit to stand on my runway. The piercing roar pierced through the entire set. Even the reporters present were shocked by HF's designers. No model would be yelled at in such a setting. Aren't you going to get out? Tongming had already prepared herself, but she still endured the humiliation. However, at this time, a deep and magnetic voice came from the end of the runway. Someone should get out. The reporters followed the voice in surprise, only to find Mo Ting standing at the end of the runway with a cold expression. Everyone's eyes grew wide. Oh God. Wasn't that the CEO of Hirue Entertainment? What was he doing here? Most importantly, he was actually walking on the runway. Everyone knew Mo Ting hated it when artists played dirty tricks. Tongming was digging her own grave. Even Hirue couldn't stand it any longer. Everyone forgot to breathe. They thought Tongming was going to be in trouble. However, Mo Ting walked over to Tongming's side like a king and said to HF's designer, "But it's not her that gets out. It's you that gets out. I can make HF disappear from Beijing, because it seems your upbringing and jewelry aren't on the same level." Tongming's heart stopped. She never thought her new husband, whom she had only met for the third time, would stand out and speak up for her. All of the reporters were shocked and began to worry. If they had known Tongming had a relationship with Hirue, they wouldn't have dared to be so arrogant. HF's designer's expression was ugly, but he knew he couldn't offend Hirue International. After a few seconds of silence, he could only apologize. "I'm sorry, President Mo. I didn't know about your relationship with this lady." "You're wrong. I have nothing to do with her. I simply don't think highly of your character." Mo Ting removed his relationship with Tongming and prepared to leave. However, before he left, he turned around and said to the reporters, "But there is no denying that she will be a rising star in the modeling industry." Chapter 4. The media and public were once again shocked. Did Mo Ting say this because he wanted to sign Tongming? Mo Ting must be joking, right? Regardless, the media and the jewelry company no longer dared to cause trouble for Tongming. All they could do was point their fingers at Tianyi Entertainment. This time, Tianyi Entertainment and Han Yufan were in big trouble. Euro's assistant directly scolded Tongming. "You can't even handle something as simple as this. What else can you do? Let's see how President Han deals with you." Tongming didn't care. Her expression was calm like never before. After getting changed, she left the venue and spotted Mo Ting's sports car at the side door. "Get in." Tongming obediently boarded the car. Towards Mo Ting's actions today, she was filled with gratitude. "Thank you for today." Mo Ting's eyes moved as his lips revealed a slight smile. "Did you think I would tolerate someone bullying my new wife in front of everyone? Actually, I'm not worth your help. I purposely let people recognize me," Tongming said apologetically. Mo Ting looked at her and lowered his gaze. "I know. However, if you can't find a way to deal with them, you can tell me. Hurting yourself like this seems a bit stupid." "Tongming, where should I take you?" "You're home. Aren't we married?" Tongming asked. She had already made a decision, so there was no way she was going to go back on it. "Think carefully. Not only are we married tonight, is our wedding night." Although Tongming blushed, she still nodded her head firmly. "I'm prepared. Thank you for hiding our relationship, but I still hope you can stand by and do nothing. I need to rely on my own abilities to take back what belongs to me." Mo Ting did not force her. It was rare for a woman to not rely on him to advance. He wanted to see what Tongming had up her sleeves. The couple set off. Not long after, Tongming received a phone call from her manager. "Tongming, I've obtained evidence of Euro's pregnancy. How do you plan to use it? Plus, the jewelry show incident has already spread online. You are now a hot topic online, and everyone is scolding you. What do you plan to do? Longjia, are you willing to follow me? Isn't that obvious? Longjia scoffed. You want me to continue following that cheating couple? In that case, release the statement I asked you to prepare. But if you do that, you and Tianyi will completely fall out. What are you afraid of? Longjia was extremely excited. We should have done this a long time ago. I'll go handle it right now. The evidence has already been prepared. I need to get it done before Han Yufan has time to react. After Tongning hung up the phone, the car once again returned to silence. Tongning was actually a little nervous. She didn't know what Mo Ting would think of her. I heard your conversation, but who are you so honest with? Taking advantage of the red light, Mo Ting grabbed onto Tongning's chin and scanned her up and down with his eagle-like eyes. I will only be honest in front of you, and I plan to be honest in the future, Tongning revealed her loyalty. Because I'm afraid you might have other thoughts about me. Mo Ting was shocked for a moment, then said, if it were me, I would only be more ruthless. Mo Ting must have guessed her relationship with Mo Euro and Han Yufan. Because of this sentence, Tongning had a good impression of her new husband. No matter what, she was going to remember the promise she made to Mo Ting today. Meanwhile, Han Yufan had also received news that Tongning had been recognized on the runway. Not only that, HF had also called to sue Tianyi Entertainment for breaching their contract. In an instant, not only did Tianyi Entertainment face the possibility of breaching their contract, there was also a lot of dirt being dug up online. Mo Euro watched the video of Tongning's runway and pulled Han Yufan in front of her. Look, Tongning did it on purpose. She knew the difference between us was our legs. She did it on purpose. Euro, Tongning isn't that kind of person. It's not like this is the first time she's replaced you on the runway. Han Yufan subconsciously trusted Tongning. Does that mean you trust Tongning even more? Yufan, don't be silly. Now that this matter has been exposed, someone has to take responsibility. Do you want to breach your contract? Or do you want to tell everyone that you were the one who asked Tongning to replace me on the runway? If that's the case, we are finished. What are you trying to say? Since you and Tongning are about to get married, and she will no longer be in the industry, for the sake of Tianyi Entertainment, you need to make a statement immediately. You have no idea about this, neither do we. Tongning was the one who wanted to create hype. That's why she hid it from us and became a substitute. Mo Euro threw everyone's dirty water onto Tongning. From the looks of it, that's the only way. Han Yufan nodded his head in agreement. However, just as he was about to contact the company's PR, his assistant also called. President Han, quick, look at the entertainment headlines. Tongning's manager has revealed everything online. Han Yufan immediately searched for the headlines. Tongning's manager was one step ahead of him, revealing all the dirt on how he had repeatedly asked Tongning to replace Mo Euro on the runway. She even posted a large number of photos comparing the two of them, claiming that small companies bullied people, and that Tongning had been bullied for many years. Han Yufan was furious. He immediately contacted Tongning's manager. Longjia, are you crazy? On the other end of the phone, Longjia laughed. Her voice was calm. I've long wanted to leave this crappy company of yours. Yufan, this must be Tongning's idea. Hurry and suppress the news. Put up news about Tongning creating hype. Han Yufan did not hesitate. He immediately used his connections to suppress Longjia's news and put up news about Tongning creating hype. In an instant, Tongning and Tianyi Entertainment both climbed to the top of the search rankings with mixed reactions. No one knew about the relationship between Tongning and Mo Ting. So, compared to Tongning and Tianyi Entertainment, they were more reluctant to offend Han Yufan. Tongning was bound to be the one on the losing end, as she was scolded like crazy online. However, just as everyone thought the tables had turned, the term Tongning's substitute suddenly appeared at the top of the search rankings. Every time someone clicked on it, it was Longjia's news. Tongning was the one on the losing end. Originally, Longjia was the one who made the announcement first, so the netizens were prejudiced. On top of that, Tongning had walked on the runway for Mo Euro so many times without creating hype. She had always been used by Tianyi. Now that she was still at the top of the search rankings, the netizens overwhelmingly believed that Tongning was the victim. Han Yufan called the PR team in disbelief and offered to increase their funding to suppress Tongning's news. At the same time, Mo Ting's assistant made a call to the mainstream media. If the news about Tongning's substitute is removed from the search rankings, then you guys can prepare to close down. Chapter 5. The media couldn't afford to offend Hai Rui, even though they couldn't understand why Hai Rui was helping Tongning. Even Long Jie couldn't understand how their plan went so smoothly. She originally thought they would have to fight with Tianyi for a few days. Tongning, tell me, did another agency try to poach you? No. Tongning replied as she looked at Mo Ting beside her. But there is indeed someone helping me from behind the scenes. As for who it is, it's not convenient for me to reveal it right now. Ha ha ha. That's okay, let's talk about it in the future. Whenever I think about Han Yufan's angry face, I get a kick out of it. Long Jie thought Tongning was using her family's background. She had no idea. Tongning would end up becoming the wife of the king of entertainment, Mo Ting. Are you planning to use this incident to leave Tianyi? Mo Ting asked as he elegantly cut into the steak in his hand. No. If I leave like this, I would be letting those two off too easily. I want them to fall from the highest point, Tongning replied calmly. Plus, I have already decided to return to the industry. But my popularity is no longer what it was before. Tianyi still has some use for me. You are doing this because of anger. If one day you no longer hate. Once I've made a decision, I will never regret it, and I will never turn back, Tongning confidently told Mo Ting. When she loved someone, she could give it her all. But when she hated someone, she could destroy them with her own hands. Moreover, it had been so many hours since Han Yufan's substitute had been exposed. He didn't even give her a call to comfort her. Instead, he released a press release that ruined her reputation. She couldn't let Han Yufan have any chance to hurt her. Mo Ting did not say a word, but he had developed a strong interest in Tongning. Tongning wasn't stupid, she was too smart. She knew the consequences of lying to him. So she did not hold back. Whether it was light or dark, this was a sign of trust. I've asked my assistant to arrange a suite in this hotel. Tonight we will stay here. Going home is boring. Tongning's ears turned red, but she still nodded her head. I'll listen to you. Han Yufan was still busy dealing with the media and business partners. Plus, he already knew Moyuro was pregnant, so he had no idea who Tongning was. Of course, he didn't know her current whereabouts. After the romantic dinner, Tongning followed behind Mo Ting as they entered the presidential suite one after another. Not only that, it was a bridal suite. Even though they were getting married in such a hurry, Mo Ting still cared about these things for her. She couldn't help but feel touched by his thoughtfulness. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to prepare these things for her. Mo Ting could sense Tongning's nervousness, so he removed his suit and turned to say, I'm going to go have a shower first. I'll give you some time to prepare. If you still have any reservations, we can delay our wedding night indefinitely. She watched as he entered the bathroom, but they were already married. What right did she have to ask Mo Ting to accommodate her willfulness? Thinking of this, Tongning pushed open the bathroom door and walked into the bathroom. Under Mo Ting's surprised gaze, she stretched out her arms and wrapped Mo Ting's muscular body in a hug. I have no regrets. Think carefully. Once you become mine, you won't have the chance to struggle anymore. Mo Ting restrained himself as he spoke. His deep and sexy voice was like a musical note that stirred up one's heart, causing one to be incomparably intoxicated. I've thought it through. As soon as these words left his mouth, Mo Ting no longer held back as he wrapped one arm around Tongning's waist and kissed her on the lips. He then used the other hand to lift up her soaked dress. Tongning's head buzzed. She never knew a kiss like this could have such a magical effect. It made her almost lose her mind. Under the shower, Tongning looked at Mo Ting's handsome face in a daze. She looked at the black mole on his earlobe that was as resplendent as a diamond. She looked at his passionate gaze and watched as he slowly devoured her. But even though they had finally met, he was not in a rush to make love to her. Instead, he wrapped her in a clean towel and carried her to the white bed covered with roses. Afterwards, his tall figure pressed down on top of her as he prepared to take care of her. However, just as he was about to enter her, he felt an obvious obstruction. Tongming let out a cry of pain as Emoting pulled back and wrapped the blanket around her. He originally thought, since Tongming was in the entertainment industry and was with Han Yufan, it couldn't be her first time. But the feeling just now couldn't have been wrong. She had never experienced anything like this before. What's wrong? Tongming felt Emoting stop, so she lifted her head and asked. Her cheeks were red and extremely alluring. Maybe next time. Emoting was pleasantly surprised. At the same time, he was annoyed that he had misjudged Tongming. Did I displease you? If I had entered you like I did just now, you would have definitely been hurt. Emoting put on a bathrobe and returned to the bed. He tried his best to calm down. He didn't want Tongming to feel bad for her first time. Why didn't you tell me you had no experience? How could I tell you something like this? Tongming replied as she snuggled into Emoting's shoulder. You would have found out sooner or later. Plus, what was that supposed to be? Did we do it? Or didn't we? Regardless of whether we did it or not, you are already Mrs. Mo. You can't run away. After speaking, Emoting stood up and carried Tongming into the bathroom. Let me see if you're hurt. Seeing his nervous expression, Tongming let out a laugh. You are completely different from how the public portrays you to be. In that case, what did you think I was like? Emoting placed her in the bathtub and turned on the water. The emperor that dictates the life and death of an artist, decisive and inhumane. To others I am like this, Emoting replied in seriousness. But, since you have become my wife and are willing to trust me then, I will use my truest side to face you. But Tongming, I have one thing to warn you about. For me, a single act of disloyalty will be tolerated 100 times. Any lies and betrayals will never be forgiven. Tongming sat up comfortably and placed her nose against Emoting's. What a coincidence, I feel the same way. That night, the couple only had half of their physical relationship, but their hearts had already become one. The next morning, Tongming woke up to the blinding sunlight. The seat next to her had already turned cold. Tongming thought Emoting had already left, but he was sitting in the living room, looking through some documents elegantly while waiting for her. I've prepared some new clothes for you. They are in the bathroom. Let's go. Tongming nodded her head and turned to head into the bathroom. At this time, she received a phone call from Han Yufan. Tongming felt a little awkward, but Emoting raised his eyebrows seductively. Do you want me to pick you up? Chapter 6. Of course not, it wasn't time yet. Emoting knew what she was planning, so he handed his phone to her. Tongming did not avoid the call as she picked it up right in front of Emoting. Tongming, where are you right now? I was afraid the reporters would find me, so I went into hiding, Tongming replied calmly. Does that mean you don't know what happened to Longjia? Han Yufan asked patiently. What happened to Longjia? The place I am hiding in is quite remote, so I have no way of knowing what is going on. What happened? Tongming tried her best to appear curious. Thanks to your manager, Tianyi is currently in big trouble. Return to the office first. I will arrange a press conference for you. Tongming, only you can explain everything clearly and clear Tianyi's name. What press conference? Was he trying to make her a scapegoat again? Did he think she was that stupid? Tongming hung up the phone in ridicule, but Emoting suddenly spoke. I've saved my number on your phone. Keep me updated on your whereabouts, and let me know what you are planning to do. Thank you, Emoting. You called me the wrong way. Emoting uncrossed his legs and pulled her to his side. Call me something else. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Tongming's face turned red as she awkwardly called out, Pa. Pa, however, this made Emoting reveal a rare smile. I will drive you to Tianyi. Also, remember what you promised me. You won't have any physical contact with any other men. Tongming knew what Emoting was referring to as she gave him a reassuring smile. Her desperate expression made Emoting's heart skip a beat. The relationship between the two was self-evident. 40 minutes later, Emoting had already driven Tongming to the vicinity of Tianyi Entertainment. After all, he was the emperor of the entertainment industry, so he was well aware of the dark side of the industry. He wanted to know how Tongning was going to turn the tables around and help her return to the top of the modeling industry. Tongning understood. This was a game where the enemy was out in the open, and she was in the dark. If she still couldn't turn the tables after reshuffling the cards, then she would forever be a failure. After alighting from Mo Ting's car, Tongning entered the building through a secret passageway. As soon as the Tianyi staff saw her, they looked at her with disdain and ridicule. It seemed they were certain she was the one behind Long Jie's exposure. Tongning chose to ignore it as she pushed open the door and entered Han Yufan's office. From behind, she looked at Han Yufan's tall figure. "You're back." Han Yufan turned around and tried his best to endure. "What's going on?" "Tongning, did you really not know about Long Jie?" Han Yufan threw the newspaper in front of her and asked angrily, "If it wasn't for your instructions, how would a mere manager like Long Jie dare to do this?" "Yufan, we are about to get married. Why would I do such a thing? Wouldn't that be pushing you out myself?" Tongning looked wronged and her voice was choked up. "Then why did you wear the crown star on your ankle at HF's jewelry show? You obviously knew the most exposed part of you, and Mo Euro was your legs." Tongning looked at Han Yufan as he questioned her. She remembered how Han Yufan had protected Mo Euro countless times in the past. She used to think Han Yufan only wanted to protect his career, so she was willing to put up with it and let him protect others. But now that she thought about it, the only person he wanted to protect was Mo Euro. "At the time, I couldn't wear the crown star. Apart from wearing it on my ankle, I had no other choice. Mo Euro's assistant was also present, you can ask him." "I've already asked Euro's assistant, he said it was all your own decision." Han Yufan pressed on. "Yufan, I am your fiancé, but you would rather trust an outsider, right?" Tongning pretended to be disappointed as she observed Han Yufan's expression. "Yesterday was supposed to be the day we registered our marriage. No matter what, the consequences have already been created. HF has already filed a lawsuit against us for breach of contract. Plus, thanks to your manager, the public is now criticizing Tianyi more and more. You will be responsible for this." Han Yufan looked down at Tongning with an expression like he was the ruler of the world. "You will soon be my wife. I don't want my wife to be someone that will hurt my career. So, Tongning, in order to protect Tianyi's reputation, you have a responsibility. Step out and explain to the public that your manager was trying to create hype. It has nothing to do with Tianyi. What's the difference between saying Long Jie created hype and admitting I created hype? Every single time, you were the one who called me and asked me to replace Mo Euro on stage." Tongning was already crying. "Yufan, just because I want to marry you, I should be sacrificed. I don't care. It is your responsibility to be recognized." As soon as these words left his mouth, Han Yufan felt his tone was a little too harsh, so he immediately softened. He reached out his arms to give Tongning a hug, but Tongning pushed him away. "Tongning, I am just anxious. Plus, this is the only time. After we get married, I will treat you even better." As expected, Tongning's tears slowly stopped as she nodded her head. "I compromised. But that doesn't mean I admit I created hype. I simply wanted to protect your career. But there won't be a next time." "Okay, I understand there won't be a next time." In reality, Han Yufan's hidden meaning was, "Next time, you will fall for it all the same. Especially after we get married." According to Tongning's personality, she would be completely at his mercy. "The press conference is at 3:30 p.m. In a moment, we will have a meeting to organize your speech." "Okay." Tongning completely stopped crying and tried her best to look at Han Yufan the same as before. However, after leaving Han Yufan's office, Tongning's eyes were filled with coldness. She couldn't immediately forget the jerk, but she would be loyal to her decision. From now on, no matter what Han Yufan did to her, she would never take the blame again. Thinking of this, she returned to her room and gave her manager a phone call. "Long Jie, Han Yufan wants to use me as a shield." "Haha, Tongning, you just need to tell me what I should do." The manager on the other end of the phone was filled with fighting spirit. 3 p.m. I will publicly apologize and admit to creating hype. After that, You will anonymously release intimate photos of Han Yufan and Imo Euro in the hospital. Haha, okay. I even thought of a perfect title. Breaking news. Tiany's CEO is cheating on mini boats. An inventory of the jerk index. Tongning was amused by her manager, but she did not forget to apologize. I'm sorry Long Jia, I've implicated you. Tongning, as long as you decide to start afresh, I will definitely help you regain your position as the #1 model. In fact, I will even help you become an international supermodel. Chapter 7. International Supermodel. She hadn't thought that far ahead. She simply wanted to focus on the present. She wanted Han Yufan and Imo Euro to pay the price. 12 p.m. The day before Tiany's meeting, Han Yufan, who hadn't eaten with her in a long time, took her to a Western restaurant downstairs and ordered a surprise candlelit lunch. Looking at the red roses and candlelight, Tongning remained calm. With Han Yufan's help, she sat down at the table. I've ordered your favorite sirloin steak. Tongning was stunned, not saying a word. It turned out, she and Han Yufan had been together for almost 5 years. Yet he didn't remember what she liked. What? You don't like it? Just as Tongning was about to speak, the tall chef dressed in white suddenly approached the couple and said, Miss Tang, today we have your favorite filet mignon. On behalf of Defei Restaurant, I would like to wish you a happy wedding. Hearing this, Han Yufan's expression changed, but he didn't want to say anything. All he could do was help to change Tongning's plate. Has your taste changed? Thank you, but we are not married yet. Tongning ignored Han Yufan as she lifted her head and explained to the chef. But, you guys are really considerate. Just by hearing me say it once, you will remember. The chef politely left while Tongning looked back at Han Yufan. Next time, I will definitely remember. What my wife likes to eat, Han Yufan said to himself. Hurry and eat. You still need to go through drafts. Tongning sneered on the inside, but on the outside, she acted normal. However, at this time, she received a text with the name 0819. Opening it, she saw it was from Imo Ting. 0819 meant yesterday was the day of their wedding. I asked someone to deliver the steak. The chef's message is to wish us a happy wedding. Tongning let out a laugh before replying from under the table. How did you know where I was? If I want to know, I will find out. Imo Ting replied calmly. Tongning held onto her phone and looked around, but did not see Imo Ting anywhere. Although she didn't know how he managed to send her such a thoughtful message, Tongning could feel he was there. Like an emperor, he was impossible to ignore and impossible to reject. Tongning, what are you looking at? Han Yufan stretched out his hand and interrupted her line of sight. His brown eyes were filled with confusion. Nothing. Tongning shook her head and calmly changed the subject. Yufan, when are we going to register our marriage again? Once this storm blows over, you will know that Euro is being nominated for the top 10 model awards. This is the perfect time for her to rise. Tongning, luckily I have you, otherwise Euro would have been ruined. Han Yufan poured a glass of red wine for Tongning and raised his glass to her. I will make you pay me back double. Tongning smiled gently. Her dimples made her look even more beautiful. However, at this moment, Han Yufan couldn't see a thing. His mind had long been numbed by Imo Euro's many years of pillow talk. He wouldn't have noticed the hidden meaning behind Tongning's words. Tongning, you've suffered. Tongning understood. This was the last bit of sweetness before she became the scapegoat. But it was laced with poison. Also, after the press conference, contact your manager Long Jia. It seems to deal with someone like her, the only way is through the law. Okay. Tang Ning smiled sweetly like spring water. But if they wanted to lay a finger on Long Jia, that was impossible. 2 p.m. Tiany's lobby was already filled with people from all walks of life. They were all very interested in Tongning's public speech. Whether it was the sudden retirement of this once famous model, the announcement of her signing with Tiany, or the fact that she was replacing Imo Euro on the runway, it was all a mystery to the media. Yet, ever since her retirement, she had kept a low profile, making it difficult to find any dirt on her. And this time, it was the perfect opportunity. 3 p.m. Tongning appeared dressed in plain clothes under the protection of her bodyguards. She slowly walked up the steps and turned around elegantly to face the media. The reporters immediately fought to be the first to speak. Tongning, you are currently #1 on the internet searches and have never fallen. Are you buying your spot? Tongning, you and Mo Euro are both Tiany's models. But in recent years, Mo Euro has been the one in the spotlight. Have you been frozen by Tiany? Are you unhappy with Mo Euro's fame? Tongning, are you trying to create hype? Faced with the sudden chaos, the company's team immediately stepped out to maintain order and give Tongning a chance to speak. First of all, I would like to apologize to the public for the damage I have caused to the company's reputation, as well as the public's suspicions towards Miss Mo Euro. HF's Crown Star fashion show was my own decision. I went on stage without the company and Miss Mo Euro's knowledge. This has nothing to do with my company, Tiany or Miss Mo Euro. I was indeed trying to create hype, but my manager had no idea. She was simply being used by me. At the same time, I will take full responsibility. Thank you everyone for your support, thank you. As soon as Tongning finished speaking, the entire venue was in an uproar. The reporters were all agitated, because they had never seen an artist admit their mistakes so straightforwardly like her. Everyone else was in a rush to clear their name, yet, she took all the blame on herself, claiming it had nothing to do with her manager, the company or Mo Euro. Tongning thought this was the end, but she never imagined Han Yufan had another trick up his sleeve. In order to prove that she was trying to create hype, Han Yufan even instructed the artist's director to approach her and face the reporters. This isn't the first time, but the company and I are willing to give you one last chance. Tongning, I hope you can learn from your mistakes and do your job as a model. This wasn't the first time. He wanted to use these words to refute the statement she had made Long Jie release and accuse her of helping Mo Euro create hype for herself. Han Yufan, you sure are ruthless. Tongning did not say a word. She simply bowed to the media and left the hall under the protection of her team. In an instant, the internet was filled with scolding. After all, Tongning had made the most direct admission. It was easy for the public to see things on the surface, so they were furious. Even within Hai Rui, the entire incident was a laughingstock. After Mo Ting finished his meeting, he overheard the discussion. He turned his head and looked at his assistant confusedly. His assistant explained everything that had happened during the press conference. President, do you need to do anything to help Miss Tongning? Not at the moment, let's see how she reacts. Mo Ting replied in a low voice. He had mentioned earlier that he was curious about Tongning's reaction. As he had interfered the last 2 times, he wanted to see Tongning's true abilities this time. Was his wife really going to be defeated by a scheme like this? Chapter 8. No matter what, Tongning had admitted to creating hype, so Tiany's name was cleared. HF had successfully communicated with them and accepted Han Yufan's apology. As a result, Mo Euro was chosen as the spokesperson. As she was also a victim, after this incident, her popularity increased. Neither Tiany Entertainment nor Mo Euro suffered any losses, but Tongning was the one that was destroyed. In an instant, Hype Queen, Scheming Female Model, Green Tea Bitch Tongning, and other topics became the hottest searches online. The comments were all disgusting. Tongning sat in her waiting room watching the news. She tried her best to maintain a calm expression. She knew what she was currently experiencing was about to. She was going to make Han Yufan and Mo Euro pay her back tenfold. However, in everyone's eyes, her image had fallen to rock bottom. Even the company's cleaner couldn't help but step on her. Miss Tang, can you please raise your noble leg? Can't you see I'm cleaning? It's not like you have a runway. Stop coming in here every day. You're making my back ache from cleaning. Tongning's expression turned cold. She was at the lowest point in her career, but that didn't mean she would allow anyone to bully her. So, she pulled out her phone and gave Han Yufan a phone call. In front of the cleaner, she pressed the speakerphone button. Yufan, have I reached a point where even the cleaners can humiliate me? Give her name to the HR department and tell her to leave, Han Yufan said without hesitation. Tongning hung up the phone and lifted her head. She looked at the woman coldly and said in a cold voice, I am easygoing, but that doesn't mean you can treat me as you please. Even if I am no longer a model, I am still the heiress of the Tang family. I can easily make a cleaner like you lose your job. The woman's face turned pale as she broke out in a cold sweat. She never expected Tongning to be so aggressive when she was angry. So she quickly bowed apologetically. I'm sorry. Miss Tang, I won't do it again. How can you treat others like you are above others, let alone when you are below others? Tongning didn't want to make things difficult for the staff, but she needed to give them a reminder. After speaking, Tongning stood up. Han Yufan had sent her another text telling her to go to the CEO's office. Tongning, your image is currently at rock bottom. So, I've arranged a few activities for you to try and restore your image. Isn't Yuro injured? You should go visit her and take care of her appropriately. Consider it an apology. Walk the path of bitterness. Tongning looked at Han Yufan's face and felt he had never been so shameless before. It was obvious that Mo Yuro wanted to use this incident to humiliate her. Yet Han Yufan still dared to say it out loud. It's just for show. And it's on the live streaming software. It'll only take a few minutes. Han Yufan originally thought Tongning wouldn't agree, because Mo Yuro was indeed using the child as an excuse to make an unreasonable request. But to his surprise, Tongning actually nodded her head and agreed. Sure. Are you willing to go? Ever since Mo Yuro got injured, I haven't had the chance to visit her. This is the perfect opportunity, Tongning replied generously. Then I'll get someone to escort you out. There are a lot of reporters outside. Tongning remained calm. She knew this was Mo Yuro's idea to torture her. But, the more arrogant Mo Yuro was, the worse her image would be in front of the public. Who would have the last laugh? It was still unknown. A moment later, Tongning boarded Han Yufan's assistant's car and headed towards Tianhe Hospital. Halfway there, she sent Mo Ting a text. Grandfather, don't worry about the news about me. I have a way to deal with it. Also, I need to go home tonight. Can you send someone to pick me up at Tianhe Hospital? I still haven't found the address of my new home. In the middle of a meeting, Mo Ting received a text. For the first time ever, he stopped the meeting. This surprised the higher-ups. What kind of god was this? How did he have such a big influence? Mo Ting ignored the surprised looks from the others. He simply felt Tongning's tone was a little pitiful. So he immediately replied, Be good, I'll pick you up later. Tongning looked at the obedient reply and couldn't imagine what Mo Ting would say. So her eyes turned into crescent moons as she smiled. However, Han Yufan's assistant looked at Tongning through the rearview mirror and laughed at her. You're still so happy right now, but you're going to suffer in a bit. Tongning knew the entire world was hostile towards her, but she forced herself not to care about how they looked at her. After texting Mo Ting, she sent another message to her manager. Long Jia, Han Yufan asked me to go to the hospital to take care of Mo Yuro. I'm almost there, are you ready? Anyone with eyes can tell with one glance that Mo Yuro's mistress is trying to take advantage of this opportunity to humiliate you. Does she think she has the ability to do so? I'm already done on my side. My preparations are spectacular. I have pictures and a video. You can show me the pictures. Don't show me the video yet. We need to give Han Yufan and Mo Yuro a chance to argue. I understand. We need to wait until the situation is ugly enough before we show them the evidence and slap them in the face. Long Jia was unusually excited. I want Mo Yuro to fall to the ground when she is at her proudest moment. Plus, Tongning, even though there are so many people scolding you, I have found a few voices defending you. This is a piece of good news amidst all the bad news. Long Jia, be careful. After sending this message, Tongning deleted her conversation with her manager as the corners of her lips curved upwards. Inside the VIP hospital room, Mo Yuro was sitting weakly on the bed. Every time she thought about how she was going to humiliate Tongning, her eyes would glow with determination. She never imagined that the idiot Tongning would actually take the blame. Not only did she help her raise her value, she even helped her secure the endorsement deal with HF. Yuro, Tongning is about to arrive. In a moment, you will need to record a 3-minute live stream. In a moment, I will ask the doctor to help you change your bandages and use this opportunity to get Tongning to wash your feet. This day has finally arrived. Mo Yuro said sinisterly. She had already been suppressed by Tongning for too long. From now on, she would climb higher and higher, until she could step all over Tongning. She wanted to be with Han Yufan openly, and become the wife of the CEO of Tianyi. From now on, you will receive even more. Plus, the annual Top 10 Model Awards are about to take place. You will definitely be selected. When that time comes, you will be one step closer to becoming a top model. Mo Yuro smiled without a trace. It was obvious she was daydreaming as her arrogance grew stronger. Chapter 9. The smell of the hospital was as pungent as ever. Tongning entered the hospital under the cover of Han Yufan's assistant. She was all alone, without even an assistant by her side. After finding Mo Yuro's room, Tongning saw Mo Yuro's assistant standing outside the door. It was this man who told Han Yufan about the incident at the Crown Star Fashion Show. He was the one who told Han Yufan it was her own decision to wear the jewelry on her ankle. He completely placed the blame on her. You're here. Mo Yuro's assistant looked at Tongning arrogantly, purposely making things difficult for her. Wait a moment. Yuro is still resting. Tongning lifted her handbag with both hands and looked directly at Mo Yuro's assistant. Her voice was gentle and slow. Do you know what my surname is? Nonsense. Who doesn't know your surname is Tang? Since you know my surname is Tang, then you should know that with my family background, it's not up to a mere assistant like you to act arrogantly in front of me. Is Tongning here? Please come in. Mo Yuro heard Tongning's voice from outside the door. She was secretly annoyed at her assistant's stupidity. If she wanted to cause trouble for Tongning, she shouldn't have been so forceful. After all, Tongning still had the Tang family behind her. Even if the Tang family didn't care as much as they did when Tongning was in her prime. Tongning lifted her chin and ignored the angry assistant as she entered the room. Seeing Mo Yuro sitting on the bed with an injured leg, she smiled. Yuro, are you okay? Tongning knew Mo Yuro had deliberately injured her leg to prevent her and Han Yufan from registering their marriage. This woman was quite ruthless towards herself. I heard from President Han that we will be recording a 3-minute live broadcast, right? Tongning, we are good friends. I am willing to help you with this and reduce the misunderstanding the public has towards you. Tongning was a little surprised. She never expected Mo Yuro's level of shamelessness was in no way inferior to Han Yufan's. The incident of her replacing Mo Yuro on the runway was something the three of them were well aware of. How could Mo Yuro pretend it had never happened? Tongning's expression did not look good as her voice trembled in anger. I simply came to see you. You're really welcome. That's right, we've even prepared a scene. In a moment, the doctor will be here to change Yuro's bandages. At that time, to show your sincerity, we have arranged a scene of you wiping Yuro's feet. This way, the netizens will understand your sincerity, Mo Yuro's assistant said excitedly. That's enough. Tongning interrupted angrily. Mo Yuro, you and I both know about the fashion show incident. Don't you think it's time for you to stop? Mo Yuro, why don't I understand? Must you distort the truth like this? If it wasn't for Yufan, I wouldn't have put up with you so many times. Haven't I helped you enough? Tongning's voice sounded like she was being wronged. Mo, you as you say, you are you. You even admitted that it was a publicity stunt. Mo Yuro was also an expert in acting. Her words were watertight, and she pretended to be innocent throughout. I will never apologize to you. However, the entire scene was recorded by Mo Yuro's assistant and was immediately posted online with the title, Green Tea Hyping Up. She says behind my back, I will never apologize to you. In an instant, thousands of waves were raised again. The reporters swarmed towards Tongning, but they failed to stop her. All that was left was Mo Yuro crying pitifully in front of the cameras. Originally, seeing as we are in the same industry and work for the same agency, I didn't plan to pursue the matter. But Tongning has gone too far. Not only did she refuse to apologize, she even insulted me. Just like that, a war of words broke out. The two models, who couldn't even make it to the big stage, put on a big show, Many onlookers who didn't know what was going on quickly gathered around. Tianyi immediately responded with a press release, stating that they had let down the public and that they would deal with Tongming seriously. It seemed like they were ready to give up on Tongming. At this time, Tongming's "I will never apologize to you" became a popular joke amongst the netizens. However, just as the entire internet was bombarding Tongming, suddenly, an internet celebrity posted a set of photos with the title, "It's not that Tongming won't apologize, it's that she doesn't need to apologize." It was a set of photos of Mo Euro and Han Yufan hugging. In the photos, the two were in the hospital. Mo Euro was wearing a hospital gown while Han Yufan pressed her under his body. Before the netizens could react, a popular website released a post. The truth behind Tongming's substitute incident. The post carefully organized the entire process of Tongming's substitute incident, as well as the affair between Han Yufan and Mo Euro. It clearly analyzed Tongming's compromise, her suppression, and finally, her anger at Mo Euro. For the sake of love, she shouldered the scandal, only to be humiliated by a mistress. Just like that, the topic of discussion was heated up. Intimate photos of Han Yufan and Mo Euro were all over the internet. However, only now did the netizens realize, apart from the body double incident, there was no other dirt to be found. The only thing that could be found was photos of her from 3 years ago, when she was still a model. She was so beautiful that it couldn't be compared to the rest of the world. A woman that had given up her career for love had never tried to defend herself. Even when the scandal was exposed, she immediately made a public apology and took full responsibility. Oh God, they had all misunderstood Tongming. Mo Euro was too good at acting. How could Tianyi suppress such a pitiful woman? The situation was once again turning around. Countless netizens felt guilty for denouncing Tongming, so they turned from haters to fans. At this time, Mo Euro was in the middle of an interview with another media outlet. I don't even know how to comment on her shamelessness. The reporter was in the middle of asking questions when her colleague suddenly pulled out his phone and showed it to the reporter. As soon as the reporter saw the photo, she held it up high and asked Mo Euro, "Miss Mo, may I ask if this photo is real?" "What is this?" Mo Euro's face turned pale. "This is an intimate photo of you and the CEO of Tianyi. Do you need me to explain in more detail what you are doing in the photo?" Mo Euro froze. Just a moment ago, she was crying pitifully in front of the camera, but now, she had turned into a mistress that seduced someone else's boyfriend. She was no different from a young model that relied on selling herself to get ahead. More importantly, she couldn't say anything to defend herself. The reporter could only feel her face was swollen and painful. "So this photo is real. You were crying while stealing someone else's boyfriend, right?" The female reporter's question suddenly became sharp. "No, it's not. The photo is clear. Are you trying to deny it?" "It really isn't, it isn't. This is all part of Tongming's scheme." Mo Euro blocked the camera and suddenly became flustered. "Stop taking photos. Get out. I don't want to accept any more interviews. Get out." The female reporter scoffed as she looked at Mo Euro with disdain. "Miss Mo, although we are all used to being in this industry, I still have to say, a despicable person will be punished by God. There is a natural cycle in this world. Since Tongming stepped out and took responsibility for everything, from now on, I will never smear her name." Mo Euro trembled in fear. After the reporter left, she immediately gave Han Yufan a phone call. "Yufan, have you seen the photo? What should we do?" "It's just a photo. What are you panicking about? The company is currently working on PR." Han Yufan replied calmly, but inside, he wasn't as calm as he imagined. If this incident was exposed, not only would it affect Mo Euro's and Tianyi's future, it could even cause him to lose Tongming completely. After all, suppressing him and cheating on Tongming were two completely different concepts. It must be Tongming behind this. If you didn't bully her, would all this happen? After speaking, Han Yufan angrily hung up the phone. He then searched for Tongming's number and dialed it. It's obviously connected. Tongming, pick up the phone. In reality, Tongming was holding on to her phone. However, she could imagine how anxious Han Yufan must be on the other side of the phone. so she did not pick up. After running out of Mo Euro's hospital room, Tongning hid in a corner and waited patiently for Mo Ting to send someone to pick her up. However, she never expected Mo Ting to come personally. Tongning, get in the car. Hearing this deep voice, the uneasiness in Tongning's heart was quickly erased. Her phone was still vibrating, but she threw it into the back seat of Mo Ting's car. Aren't you going to pick up? Mo Ting asked as he revealed the side of his face. Why are you asking when you already know the answer? Tongning giggled. Her motive was to make Han Yufan look for her all night and experience the feeling of torture. Chapter 10. Mo Ting did not say another word as he looked ahead. At this time, Tongning placed her gaze on his right earlobe. The mole on his right ear resembled a black diamond. It was like he was born with an earring, giving him an evil and dangerous aura. The way you're looking at me, are you inviting me to kiss you? Hug you? Or? Tongning held back her nervousness and hooked her arm around Mo Ting's as she avoided his burning gaze. Before we go to our new home, can you accompany me somewhere else? After we go, can we finish what we left off last night tonight? Huh? Mo Ting's question was light, but Tongning couldn't hide her nervousness. She knew she might not be able to muster the courage she had last night. Mo Ting did not force her, nor did he say a word. He simply let her hug his arm as the corners of his lips subtly curved into a smile. The couple did not return to Mo Ting's home. Instead, they accepted Tongning's request and went to the famous cherry blossom forest in Beijing. This was the place she and Han Yufan used to go on dates. But today, she was going to completely remove Han Yufan from her heart. So in the end, she picked up the phone and said in a low voice, I am at the cherry blossom forest, the place we always meet. If you still want to see me, let's meet at the same old place. I won't leave until I see you there. Okay, I'll be right there. Han Yufan immediately agreed. Although he and Mo Euro were together, he never intended to give up on Tongning. Where else could he find a woman more gullible than Tongning? All along, she had been loyal to him, had a wealthy family and a good temper. Tongning hung up the phone and lifted her head to look at Mo Ting sitting opposite her. Her voice sounded sincere but choked up. This is the last time I will call him because of my personal feelings. From now on, it will never happen again. Mo Ting raised his eyebrows without saying a word. He simply patted the seat next to him, gesturing for Tongning to move over to his side in a possessive manner. Tongning obediently moved over. The couple looked down through the glass window of the restaurant. A moment later, an anxious figure appeared under the cherry blossom tree. Han Yufan had arrived. In the past, she had stood in the same spot as Han Yufan and waited for an entire day. 5 out of 10 times she had been stood up. Now that she thought about it, the sincerity she had once given him had been treated so casually. So, she wanted Han Yufan to experience being stood up, toyed with and betrayed. Is this enough for you to vent your anger? Mo Ting asked as he looked at the figure downstairs. Of course not. I just want him to pay me back, no matter how big or small. Mo Ting stretched out his long fingers and lifted Tongning's chin as he looked into her eyes. On the surface, she looked like a delicate woman, but when it came to emotional trauma, she was able to cleanly end it without any hesitation. She was not pretentious at all. I ordered foie gras. The waiter said it was flown in from France. I think it should be good. Mo Ting let go of her and revealed a surprised smile. How did you know I like it? What's so hard about knowing your husband's preferences? Tongning reminded the waiter. Let's eat and talk at the same time. Mo Ting looked at her rose-like lips as a dangerous glint flashed across his eyes. But I don't want to chat with you, I just want to kiss you. Who said he was the #1 poison in the entertainment industry? Obviously, the woman in front of him also had a strong poison that made one unknowingly addicted to it. Downstairs, Han Yufan was still waiting in the same spot. Upstairs in the dining room, Tongning and Mo Ting were having dinner together. In reality, Tongning didn't like to talk about her work in front of Mo Ting. And Mo Ting understood. Previously, he had helped Tongning twice, but from the way she dealt with the situation this time, he could tell she wasn't weak at all. But Even if she wasn't weak, she was still Mo Ting's wife. As long as she was Mo Ting's wife, she could only bully others. Soon an hour had passed. Although Han Yufan was getting impatient, he did not dare to take a single step away. During this time, Han Yufan kept trying to call Tongning, but on the other side, her phone was turned off. He had no idea. At this moment, in the eyes of Tongning and Mo Ting, he was like an insignificant doorman. Finally, the couple finished eating. Mo Ting glanced downstairs and asked Tongning, "Do you want to continue watching?" "No, I want you to help me move." Mo Ting nodded his head as he quickly paid the bill and led Tongning out the side door. Afterwards, the couple arrived at Tongning's apartment. However, before Mo Ting entered, Tongning asked him to wait outside for 5 minutes. When he entered 5 minutes later, there were no longer any photos of Tongning and Han Yufan, nor were there any items used by men. This was because Han Yufan had never stayed over in the first place. Mo Ting, wait for me for a moment. I need to pack a few things. Mo Ting scanned Tongning's apartment and looked at the giant photo in the living room. It was a photo of her when she won the top model award. If she hadn't retired from the industry, she would have long gone out into the world. Another 5 minutes later, Tongning emerged from her bedroom with a teddy bear in her arms. "This is everything I have. You don't want anything?" "No, let the memories be sealed away." Tongning shook her head. However, at this time, Mo Ting suddenly pulled her into his embrace and pressed his icy cold lips against hers. At first, Tongning was surprised, but soon, she closed her eyes and began to respond. It was not until Mo Ting's hand had already reached under her shirt that the couple suddenly stopped. "We can deal with the rest when we get home. But does my kiss at this moment make your memories a little better?" Tongning wrapped her arms around Mo Ting and felt his calm aura. From now on, she would never let anyone hurt her again. She was going to hold on to everything that belonged to her tightly in her own hands. Meanwhile, Han Yufan waited for Tongning in the cherry blossom forest for 4 hours. He originally planned to wait until the end, but he received a phone call from Mo Yuro. "Yufan, where are you? I'm at your home. I can't find you. My stomach is hurting." "Yufan, why haven't the photos been suppressed yet? I'm afraid I'll be destroyed like this." Han Yufan suddenly woke up and immediately drove home. Seeing Mo Yuro standing pitifully with one foot at the door, he ignored everything and ran over to hug her. "I won't let you be destroyed. I won't let Tanny be destroyed. Yufan, I only have you. You can't abandon me and our child." Han Yufan comforted Mo Yuro as he gently patted her on the back. He then instructed his team to release another PR statement that night. There were other people present at the time of the incident. The truth was, Mo Yuro's right leg was injured, so she lost her balance and Han Yufan went to help her up, causing them to fall. It wasn't as the photos said they were pressed down and kissed. Most importantly, even at this point, Han Yufan still continued to sacrifice Tongning. He was hinting that someone was manipulating things from behind the scenes and wanted the public to not be misled. Chapter 11. After Han Yufan's PR news was released, he once again bribed a few influential social media accounts to clear his name. Over the next 2 to 3 days, he planned to use all sorts of methods to clarify Mo Yuro's professionalism and character. He planned to make Tongning the scapegoat until the end. After all, the popularity of the industry would only last for a few days before the public got sick of it. By the time the next big news was released, their scandal would be drowned in a sea of saliva, and Mo Yuro would be able to return to work. Their plan was for Mo Yuro to announce that she was going to study abroad after receiving her top 10 model awards, and secretly give birth to the child. The reason why Han Yufan wanted the child was because Mo Yuro was his first love, and she had been by his side for many years. On top of that, he had a bright future ahead of him, so he didn't want to give up on the money tree that was Mo Yuro. Tongning's manager Long Jia was full of mockery after seeing Han Yufan's PR attempt to clear her name. She even snuck over to Tongning's apartment because she had the keys. But as soon as she entered, she discovered Tongning wasn't there. So she gave Tongning a phone call in confusion. "Tongning, why aren't you home?" Tongning was currently in the bathroom of her new home, filling Emoting's bath with water. She had a gentle smile on her face. I didn't get a chance to tell you I moved. Where did you move to? Is it safe? Does Han Yufan know? Tongning turned to look at Emoting, who had just entered the bathroom. Just as she was about to explain, Emoting didn't notice she was on the phone, so he simply said, "Leave these things to the maids." On the other end of the phone, Long Jia could immediately tell that Tongning was with another man. Her voice became sharp. Tongning, who are you with? Are you throwing caution to the wind in order to deal a blow to Han Yufan? I knew it, you are a retired model. Who would be willing to help you when you are stepping all over the place? It turns out you're going to piss me off. Have you found someone else to rely on? Where are you? I'm here to pick you up. We don't have to do that. Where are you? I want to see you right now. Otherwise, I will kill myself in front of you. Tongning was a little helpless as she looked up at Emoting. She held onto the phone and asked for his opinion. My manager seems to have a misunderstanding about me moving, so I want to go out and explain things to her. Do you believe her? In reality, Emoting had already done his own research on Long Jia. She was passionate and professional, although she could be a little stubborn at times, and was far from being a top manager. The good news was that she was wholeheartedly dedicated to Tongning, and was someone he could use. Yes. In that case, let me Lu Che pick her up. Tongning thought carefully and understood what Emoting was trying to say. She also trusted his judgment. Plus, she wasn't the Tongning from yesterday. As long as she was awake, no one would be able to play any tricks in front of her. So, she told Long Jia to wait at her old apartment while she sent someone to pick her up. Long Jia scoffed, clearly disappointed at Tongning's failure to meet her expectations. Tongning smiled as she hung up the phone. She then asked Emoting, I've filled the bathtub for you. Do you want to shower now? Emoting raised his eyebrows as he buttoned his shirt back up to cover up his sexy collarbones. There are guests coming. Of course, I have to see the male lead. Most importantly, I want to shower with you. Tongning's face was blushing, but she still nodded her head shyly. Long Jia was indeed furious. She felt it was unfair for Tongning. Was it worth sacrificing so much for the jerk, Han Yufan? She was actually willing to let him sneak into her arms. She was well aware that there was no such thing as true love in the industry. Many people simply wanted to have sex, and would turn their backs on them as soon as they woke up. How could she do something so stupid? Long Jia was furious as she cursed from time to time. It wasn't until Lu Che arrived at the apartment that he saw Long Jia. If you want to see Miss Tang, please follow me. Long Jia recognized Emoting, but she didn't remember someone as insignificant as Lu Che. So, her attitude towards Lu Che wasn't very friendly as she lifted her leg and kicked him. If anything happens to my Tongning, I will definitely cripple you and the man behind you. Lu Che grabbed onto his beautiful hairstyle. After being kicked by Long Jia, he no longer cared about his image as he grimaced in pain. Let's not talk about who's crippling who. Come with me first. Long Jia scoffed as she lifted her head. She looked at Lu Che in complete disdain as she boarded the car with him. Throughout the entire time, Long Jia was testing Lu Che with all sorts of warnings and threats. She even mentioned Tongning's family background. All that was missing was a knife to his neck. In the end, as they entered the estate, Long Jia was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Hyatt Regency was one of Beijing's landmarks. This estate only had 30 households, and every single one of them had power and influence. Just the background of any one of them was enough to shock anyone. Haha, what kind of person is your boss? Long Jia couldn't sit still any longer. You'll find out once you get in. Lu Che also had a temper. Long Jia was frightened out of her wits. Her previous arrogance had completely disappeared, because no one here was someone she could afford to offend. Not long after, the car drove through the metal gates of a villa with a fountain. Long Jia was invited out of the car and into the Spanish palace-style living room. Tongning sat on the sofa dressed in soft white home clothes. She had no makeup on, but she was still as beautiful as ever. Tongning, what is this all about? Did you look for the old man? Long Jia asked as soon as she approached Tongning. Did you sacrifice yourself for Han Yufan? Long Jia, There's something I need to tell you. But you can't get too excited. Tongning pulled Long Jie over to sit on the sofa. Did you say you found a new boyfriend? No. Tongning held back her laughter as she shook her head. That's good. I'm married. Long Jie. 2 seconds later she suddenly exploded. What did you say? You're married? How could you get married? Who are you marrying? Why would you joke around with your happiness? Just as Long Jie was getting excited, Mo Ting finished his work and walked out of the study room. Under Long Jie's shocked gaze, he walked over to the sofa and leaned over to whisper something into Tongning's ear. Afterwards, Tongning turned her head and nodded obediently. Okay, it won't take more than half an hour. Mo Ting was satisfied. He looked deeply into Long Jie's eyes before heading back upstairs. Although the entire process was short, Long Jie was still in disbelief. Tongning, hurry and pinch me. I want to know if I'm dreaming. Why do you say that? Tongning once again pulled her down, reminding her not to get too excited. So the person you married is the CEO of Hai Rui Entertainment, Mo Ting. Aha. Are you really married? Long Jie asked again with uncertainty. You're right, it's him. He is my newlywed husband. Tongning nodded her head in seriousness. After hearing Tongning's answer, Long Jie's expression immediately changed from one of worry to one of joy. No wonder your announcement was on the hottest search list. No matter how much money Han Yufan spent, he couldn't remove it. Tongning, you have given me a pleasant surprise. That's more like it. Even if you were to find someone to marry, it wouldn't be a piece of trash like Han Yufan. But I never expected you would actually marry the CEO of Hai Rui Entertainment. Do you know how much difference Tianyi and Hai Rui are? Satisfying. Satisfying. If that piece of trash Han Yufan found out, wouldn't he be overjoyed? Chapter 12. But I don't have any plans to reveal my relationship with Mo Ting at the moment, Tongning replied calmly. The smile on her face was confident and dazzling. With Mo Ting's help, I can indeed soar. But people will simply say, look, this is Mo Ting's wife and not the model Tongning. 3 years ago, I was able to become Beijing's top model. 3 years later, I can still rely on my own hard work to take back what belongs to me. Long Jie, if you are still willing to help me, then we can advance and retreat together. If you aren't willing, I won't force you. I will help you cancel your contract with Tianyi and help you find a better agency. What are you talking about? Of course, I want to stay by your side and become an international supermodel's top manager, Long Jie said confidently. But do you still want to stay at Tianyi? What do you think? Tongning gave Long Jie a look to let her figure it out for herself. Han Yufan has used me so many times. No matter what, I have to pay him back. Hearing this, Long Jie collapsed in laughter as she leaned into Tongning's body and shook her shoulders. Tongning, I realize all these years, I've known you for nothing. I never expected you to be so two-faced. In that case, what should we do next? Release the video? No. Snatch the endorsement deal. To be exact, we will take back what belongs to me from Mo Euro's hands. When that happens, Mo Euro's fans will definitely retaliate. We will use the video then. Long Jie, I will need to trouble you to edit the Crown Star show and post it online. That's a small matter. I have no problem with it. As soon as Long Jie heard this, her eyes lit up as she nodded her head. Most importantly, she realized Tongning was different. In the past she was gentle and weak, but who would have thought, when she was strong, she would be so powerful? After their discussion, Tongning asked Lu Che to drive Long Jie home. She then stood up from the sofa and returned to the fragrant bedroom. Mo Ting had just changed into his robe and was sitting on the sofa drinking red wine. His chin was slightly raised, accentuating the contours of his face. He was perfect like a sculpture, making one's heart beat faster. Tongning was a little nervous, but she still walked over to Mo Ting's side and sat down. Mo Ting did not stop drinking, but he suddenly hooked his left arm around Tongning's shoulder and placed a kiss on Tongning's lips. With his mouth on hers, he allowed Tongning to taste the fragrance of the wine in his mouth. Mo Ting chuckled as he placed a kiss on the tip of her nose. Your alcohol tolerance is too low. You will be at a disadvantage when you attend events. You need to practice. Tongning pushed Mo Ting's chest away and leaned against him. What do you think we should do, President Mo? How about a drink every day? Using the same method as before? Tongning raised her eyebrows in a provocative manner. Mo Ting couldn't help but chuckle as he nodded his head. You like it? Yes, Tongning nodded. All right then. After speaking, Mo Ting once again picked up his wine glass and leaned over in the same way as before. However, after drinking they did not separate. Instead, they kissed passionately and temporarily treated the sofa as a bed. Especially when Mo Ting's kisses landed on other parts of her body. Tongning felt her entire body tremble as her consciousness began to fade. She had never felt this electric shock before. Her entire body felt like it was a pile of mud. Amidst her confusion, all she could see was Mo Ting's handsome nose and soft lips. But she could feel his strong arms and, Mo Ting, go to bed. I don't want to go to the sofa. Hearing her pleading, Mo Ting suddenly stopped. He looked at her slender legs, that were as beautiful as a mermaid's tail. So he held back his desire, wrapped her in a bathrobe and strode into the bathroom, placing her in the bathtub. What's wrong? Mo Ting wrapped the towel around his body, turned around and knelt down in front of Tongning. He hooked his finger under her chin and said, I want to have your heart first. I want you to only have me in your heart before I make you mine. After speaking, Mo Ting prepared to get up, but Tongning reached out and grabbed onto his towel. I don't hate it. Us. Like this. Do you still not completely trust me? Mo Ting stretched out his hand and patted her on the head, trying to calm himself down. I really want you. You don't know how mesmerizing you are like this. But I want you to be whole, whether it's physically or mentally. I want you to be sure. Tongning nodded her head and held on to Mo Ting's left hand. It's been a long time since someone has respected me like this. Mo Ting understood what she meant. Although he really wanted to crush Han Yufan, Mo Ting firmly believed that she would be able to achieve everything she wanted through her own hard work. The next morning, Tianyi Entertainment's two model fight headlines had already been replaced by the hottest news on the social front page. As for Han Yufan and Mo Euro's scandal, it was temporarily covered up by the PR. Entertainment news like this usually came and went quickly, but because Tongning took the initiative to step out and take responsibility, she still gained a lot of new fans. They had already begun to dig up Tongning's previous works. No one noticed that Tongning was quickly coming back to life in a certain way, especially the Crown's Star Runway show. Tongning's performance was clearly better than any of the other popular models. New fans were not willing to let Tongning be buried like this, so they sent out different versions of the video while contacting HF. As for HF, after seeing the video, they were shocked by Tongning's beauty, especially the designer who was angry at Tongning at the time. After seeing the photos of Tongning in motion and still, he was shocked at how well she matched the jewelry. It was like they were made in heaven. HF's designer hesitated. At the time, he was angry at Tianyi for deceiving them. But after calming down and thinking about it, Tongning's elegance and professionalism were more in line with the theme of the Crown's star. Plus, because of Tongning's apologetic attitude, HF gained some trust in her. So, the higher-ups of HF quickly held a meeting to discuss a replacement spokesperson. In the end, they came to an answer and made a phone call to Tianyi Entertainment's CEO's office. Mr. Yuran, Euro's injury will soon recover and won't affect HF's new product launch. No, it's not like that. Mr. Han Yufan, we would like to replace Mo Euro with Tongning, the man said in fluent English. After hearing this, Han Yufan was dumbfounded. No, Mr. Yuran, isn't this a bit inappropriate? We have not officially signed the contract yet. If we can't replace Tongning, we would rather not do so, and look for another agency to work with. We still have other models. They are even more famous than Mo Euro. We only want Tongning. The man's words were firm, not giving Han Yufan a chance to refute. But this endorsement was meant to help Mo Euro get into the top 10 model awards. Who would have thought Mo Euro would end up with such a great deal? If this happened, Mo Euro would definitely go crazy. Long Jia had also received news from her sources that HF had already made a phone call to Han Yufan's office requesting for a replacement spokesperson. So when she spoke to Tongning, she appeared especially happy. Tongning, you have a spokesperson. Don't be too happy yet. Mo Euro won't give up so easily. Tongning was not the least bit complacent. Everything was within her control. Mo Euro pushed Han Yufan away agitatedly, her tone indignant. She already stole you, isn't that enough? Why does she have to fight with me for everything? I don't care. If I lose this endorsement, then I don't want my child and I won't be staying at Tianyi. What are you saying? Han Yufan quickly restrained her. How can you casually say that you don't want children? You know very well that I'm biased towards you. But this time, HF's attitude is very firm. After all, Tongning has already given in so many times. So what if she gives him one more time? She's already going to marry you. Why does she still need an endorsement deal? After hearing Mo Euro's words, Han Yufan felt they made sense. According to Tongning's personality, she had already given in so many times. So one more time wouldn't make much of a difference. He was sure she would agree. So he quickly comforted Mo Euro. I will tell her, don't be angry, okay? Mo Euro cried her eyes out as she threw herself into Han Yufan's embrace. At this time, his assistant knocked on Han Yufan's office door to inform him that Tongning and Long Jie had returned to the office. Mo Euro immediately held back her tears and kept her distance from Han Yufan. Her expression remained the same until Tongning pushed open Han Yufan's office door. Tongning, where did you go last night? Don't you know that I've been looking for you all night? Han Yufan threw a barrage of questions at her. Tongning looked at him, and then back at Mo Euro. Euro and I had a misunderstanding. I've already released a statement to clear things up. Don't make a big deal out of it, okay? Tongning looked away without saying a word. She knew Han Yufan had been looking for her all night, because he had gone to bed with Mo Euro. Otherwise, there was no way he wouldn't have noticed she was no longer at the apartment. But Miss Mo and I didn't have a misunderstanding. Tongning said calmly. I've helped her so many times, yet she turned the tables on me. In your eyes, am I that easy to bully? Tongning, at the time, Euro was afraid of the paparazzi, so she could only respond in that way. Really? Tongning asked suspiciously. No matter what, this matter is in the past. You don't need to pursue it any further. Also, regarding the contract with HF, you should return it to Euro. This contract is too important to her. Since you have retired, you won't be able to walk on the runway again, so there's no point in getting the contract. Han Yufan used a commanding tone to order Tongning to return the contract to Mo Euro. That's right, Tongning. You haven't walked the runway in so many years. You've become rusty with the runway. Mo Euro also joined in the persuasion. Plus, HF's endorsement deal was originally mine. They only chose you because they saw I was injured and thought I wouldn't be able to recover in the short term. You don't want to be a substitute, do you? Coming from Miss Mo's mouth, these words are a bit ironic, Tongning said coldly. However, Han Yufan immediately scolded her. Tongning, you've never been like this in the past. Plus, if you still love me, then don't accept this deal. For the sake of the company's long-term plans, we need Euro's award to raise our status. Han Yufan's words were obviously threatening. He actually used the words love and don't love. Hearing this, Mo Euro secretly laughed in her heart. She knew Tongning could do anything for Han Yufan, let alone give up a deal. Yufan, hurry and contact HF, and explain to them that Tongning is considering the wedding, and has no plans to accept any more deals. Han Yufan nodded his head. Just as he was about to pick up the phone on his desk, Tongning reached out and stopped him. This deal. I will accept it. Tongning? Han Yufan was surprised. Tongning had never gone against his decisions. Don't forget, I am also a model for Tianyi Entertainment. Plus, I have already spoken to HF's founder, Mr. Eugene. He is looking forward to our collaboration. Chapter 14. Tongning, I am the CEO of Tianyi Entertainment. I have the final say, not you. Han Yufan looked at Tongning angrily. Why must you steal Euro's endorsement deal? Do you think I can steal the endorsement deal just because I say so? HF has requested for a replacement. I was simply afraid that the deal would be lost, so I wanted to help you keep your contract. Originally, I didn't believe in the relationship between you and Mo Euro, but now that you are willing to sacrifice your profits to keep her endorsement deal, does that mean between the two of you? Of course not. What are you thinking? Han Yufan immediately refuted. I just think we are about to get married. Can't you just stay at home and take care of our family? Then why don't you explain it to HF's Mr. Eugene? Tongning loosened her grip on the phone, her eyes filled with disappointment. Also, what do you mean I stole Mo Euro's endorsement deal? Don't tell me I didn't give her enough in the past? In order to push her onto the stage, I've already offended everyone I could. Who would have thought in the end, they wouldn't even remember my kindness? Tongning, you were the one who announced your retirement. That's why they decided to switch models. What do you mean by giving in? Mo Euro wasn't happy either, so she argued with Tongning in Han Yufan's office. She hated people saying she took over Tongning's business. Plus, with your current ability and fame, you want to give in? Who would believe you? Fine, if you can make Mr. Eugene change his mind, I will withdraw from the endorsement deal. I have no objections. Han Yufan was stuck between the two women, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Most importantly, Tongning was still angry, otherwise, she would have never disobeyed his orders. Plus, HF had indeed requested for Tongning to be the model, so in the end, Han Yufan spoke up to stop them. Stop arguing. Since HF has requested it, then we have no choice but to do as they say. We will give Tongning the endorsement deal. President Han, Mo Euro yelled angrily. Then it's decided. You two go back first, Tongning. Tell Long Jie to come in. Han Yufan ordered coldly. It was obvious. Even though he had no choice but to give in to Tongning, he hated the feeling of Tongning riding roughshod over him. The intelligent Tongning had already understood Han Yufan's intentions. But, did he think she would still be as careful and considerate as before? Dream on. Mo Euro followed behind Tongning. The anger in her heart was written all over her face. She almost lost control. Luckily, although Tongning was showing signs of making a comeback, she was still not that popular. If she wanted to tear down an outdated model, it was easy. So she turned to her assistant and said, in a moment, take a few photos of me working hard to recover, and post them online. Let's incite fans to accuse Tongning of stealing my endorsement deal. If I can't get it, she can't either. Don't worry, I know what to do. The assistant nodded with understanding. After returning to the waiting room, Tongning winked at Long Jie. Don't be nervous. Tian boss. Are you kidding me? Who am I? Long Jie rolled her eyes. It's not like this is my first day as a manager. If Han Yufan wants to tear me apart, it won't be that easy. Just wait and see. After speaking, Long Jie stormed out angrily. In the past, it was Tongning who didn't want to improve herself. But now the situation had changed and everything was different. Of course, she wasn't afraid. Get out. Long Jie let out a laugh. President Han must be forgetful. Back when I first signed my contract with Tianyi, it was clearly stated that my salary was linked to Tongning's activities. But all these years, because Tongning's activities have been replaced by Mo Euro, my salary has fallen far short of what was originally promised. Who was the one that broke the contract first? Plus, the comments I made were all for Tongning's benefit. Which part of the contract did I break? You. Han Yufan never imagined he would be beaten up by a manager. He felt humiliated. If you aren't afraid of blowing up this matter, then we can go to court. I don't care. But, who in the industry will trust Tianyi Entertainment? Long Jie asked provocatively. What do you want? Let's part on good terms. I will sign the contract and leave. Don't even think about asking for compensation. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. Han Yufan looked at Long Jie angrily. But because Mo Euro was in the middle, he couldn't find the words to refute. Long Jie had taken advantage of this when she was negotiating with Tongning. So in the end, Han Yufan could only hold back his anger and sign the contract. Get lost. I don't want to see you ever again. Han Yufan, let me give you a piece of advice. There is no such thing as a wall without a hole in it. If you treat Tongning like this, sooner or later, You will pay 1,000-fold. After speaking, Long Jie grabbed the contract and left the office. However, because of Long Jie's words, Han Yufan flipped the table in his office. Tongning wasn't worried at all that Long Jie would be bullied by Han Yufan. After all, it was too easy to find a loophole in a contract. Most importantly, Han Yufan had a guilty conscience. After terminating her contract, Long Jie did not leave the office. Instead, she followed behind Tongning. As Han Yufan exited the office, he bumped into her. "Why haven't you left yet?" Tongning froze for a moment before replying. "Because I signed Long Jie." "Tongning, your management contract is with the agency. What right do you have to sign another manager?" Han Yufan was about to go crazy from anger. "Oh, I didn't sign her as a manager. I signed her as my assistant. Isn't it my right to find an assistant?" Tongning smiled calmly. "After all, Long Jie has taken care of me for so many years. I'm used to her taking care of me." "Tongning, what's wrong with you? Are you going against me?" Han Yufan asked angrily as he pulled Tongning to one side. "Because compared to you, my fiancé, Long Jie is more considerate of me. She doesn't think I stole someone's job just because I accepted a contract." After hearing Tongning's words, Han Yufan once again fell silent. He glared at Tongning coldly. "Tongning, you have always been the most supportive of my work. How did you end up like this?" "I've said it before, when I was the substitute for the crown star. It was the last time I helped you take the blame." Tongning remained calm. Her eyes were so calm that it was impossible to tell what she was feeling. "If you really want to be so stubborn, I think we can temporarily call off our marriage." Han Yufan wanted to use marriage as an excuse to suppress Tongning. After all these years, Tongning had always been by his side and was willing to do anything for him. For a long time, Tongning did not say a word. It seemed she was weighing her options. Han Yufan felt her heart had softened, and she was already regretting going against him. But he never expected Tongning would say something like this. Chapter 15. "Oh, you don't want to get married? Then let's not get married." Tongning laughed. "Let's talk about it after you're done with your work." With this, Han Yufan was the one panicking. He reached out his hand and placed it on Tongning's shoulder as he glared at her. "Don't you love me anymore? What about you? Do you love me?" Tongning subtly freed herself from Han Yufan's grasp. She had promised Mo Ting that she would no longer have physical contact with anyone. Han Yufan was stunned as he stuttered, unable to speak. He had never had any feelings for Tongning. Most of the time, he only knew how to make use of her. So he slowly loosened his grip. "We are already getting married. Why are you still asking about love? You are about to become my wife. Can't you be more considerate of me?" It wasn't easy for Euro to get the chance to be nominated for the top 10 model awards. "Tongning, I am just angry at you for being so immature." Tongning slowly distanced herself from Han Yufan. Her expression was calm. "In that case, from now on, you will need to slowly get used to the way I am now." After speaking, Tongning left Han Yufan behind and left Tianyi Entertainment. Han Yufan was confused. He didn't know why Tongning's attitude had changed so much. But after thinking about it carefully, he concluded she was still jealous of him and Mo Euro. But he didn't have the energy to comfort her. As for Mo Euro, he hadn't even had the time to comfort her yet. Tongning had always been a reassuring person. After her anger subsided, she should be back to normal. She had always been a cheap wretch and never had a temper of her own. Tongning knew Han Yufan wouldn't chase after her. She had completely given up on this man. On the contrary, as soon as she was about to return home and see Mo Ting, her heart suddenly lit up. "Tongning, I'll take you home first. Get some rest. Tomorrow we will sign the contract for an outdoor shoot," Long Jie said excitedly. "Long Jie, you should check out of your apartment and move into my previous one. Give it a little more life. You should also change the lock. If Han Yufan asks, tell him you are moving in to take care of me, and it's inconvenient for him to keep the key," Tongning suggested. "Tomorrow, I will sign a new contract with you." "That's great. Then I can save some money again." After speaking, Long Jie looked at Tongning and smiled ambiguously. "As the CEO of Hai Rui, how good are you in that area?" Can you not be so nosy? Tongning glared at Long Jia. After returning home, Mo Ting was still in the office. Since she had nothing to do, she walked into the kitchen and saw the maids cooking. She rolled up her sleeves and said, "Let me help." "Madam, how could I trouble you?" The chef was a middle-aged woman in her 40s. She had a good impression of the quiet Tongning. "How about this? You have a day off today, and I'll cook for Mo Ting." Tongning chased the maid out of the kitchen. By the time Mo Ting returned home, it was already late at night. However, the first thing he did as soon as he entered the house was look for Tongning. At this time, the barefooted woman, wearing an apron, was currently cooking in the kitchen. Mo Ting was a little surprised. His deep gaze was immediately attracted to Tongning's long legs. So he walked up to her, hugged her from behind, and placed a kiss on her earlobe. "President Mo, stop fooling around. I'm cooking fish." Mo Ting turned off the stove, lifted Tongning's chin and kissed her on the lips. "But right now, I only want to eat you." Tongning put down the kitchen utensils and turned around to hug Mo Ting. She clumsily responded to his passionate kiss. She was mesmerized by his soft touch, especially when she saw the mole on his right ear. It was so alluring that she was infatuated. Mo Ting's kisses were intense and gentle as he moved down inch by inch. Finally, he stopped at her collarbone. "If you go any lower, I won't be able to control myself." "Fish. I'll continue cooking." Tongning left Mo Ting's lips and turned on the stove again to continue her unfinished work. Mo Ting let out a gentle laugh as he patted Tongning on the head and looked at her work. "Let me help too." "President Mo cooks." Tongning raised an eyebrow. "Today, I'll let you cook. But from now on, don't enter the kitchen. You might get hurt." Mo Ting treasured Tongning's legs more than anything else. In fact, he was already thinking of buying insurance for her. "Domineering," Tongning commented. But deep down, she knew Mo Ting was doing this because he was worried. The couple prepared dinner in silence. It turned out they were both expert cooks. Tongning cooked what Mo Ting liked, and Mo Ting cooked what Tongning liked. In no time at all, a sumptuous meal had been prepared on the dining table. At the same time, the couple were surprised by each other. After all, not many people could enjoy life. "Tomorrow, I may need to head to Lucerne for an outdoor shoot. I won't be able to return home tonight." Tongning honestly explained her schedule to Mo Ting. "Didn't you sign the contract tomorrow? You have to go in the afternoon?" "Yes, HF's new product launch is just around the corner." Tongning nodded her head. "Mo Ting, give me a little more time. I will definitely climb to a position that will make you proud." "I've never doubted you." Mo Ting placed food on Tongning's plate. The couple looked at each other with admiration. Of course, Mo Ting was looking forward to seeing how miserable Han Yufan and Mo Euro would be under Tongning's careful planning. After the night wind, it began to drizzle. After returning to Han Yufan's apartment, Mo Euro smashed everything that could be smashed into smithereens. Especially when she thought about the fact that Tongning was going to sign the contract tomorrow. Her heart was filled with unwillingness. Most importantly, Han Yufan had actually helped Tongning. This was something she couldn't tolerate. As soon as Han Yufan pushed open the door, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. When he saw Mo Euro holding the vase, he immediately rushed forward and hugged her. "Don't be so excited, it's not good for the child." "At least you know it's not good for children. Yet you watched as Tongning stole my contract. We still have plenty of opportunities. I'm already helping you negotiate a bigger deal. Stop staring at Tongning. Even if she accepts a deal, what can she achieve?" Han Yufan kept patting Mo Euro's shoulder. "Baby, listen to me, don't hurt yourself." "Even so, I still can't accept this." Mo Euro lifted her head with tears in her eyes. "She has dominated you for so many years. I will not let Tongning off easily." In reality, she had already instructed her assistant to stir up the fans online, and was beginning to see results. The fans had already formed a hashtag to attack Tongning and throw dirty water at her. Even if she lost, she wasn't going to let Tongning win. Most importantly, she instructed her assistant to release Tongning's schedule for the next day, giving the anti-fans a chance to cause trouble for her. Did Tongning think it was easy to accept a deal? Tomorrow, She was going to become the most embarrassing model at the airport. Chapter 16. The contract signing ceremony with HF was to be held at 9 a.m. The entire process was broadcast live and announced to the public. It could be considered HF's vote of support for Tongning and Mo battle. After 3 years, Tongning had indeed forgotten what it felt like to attend events. But as soon as she put on this white backless dress and wore the jewelry sponsored by HF, her confidence once again returned to her face. Long Jie drove from the apartment to Hyatt Regency early in the morning. As she was Tongning's assistant, Mo Ting gave her special permission to enter the villa. Originally, she had prepared a dress for Tongning to wear to the event. But, as soon as she entered the villa and saw Mo Ting had prepared a walk-in closet for her, she felt dizzy. The CEO of Hairui is indeed the CEO of Hairui. How generous. He has good foresight. Long Jie praised. At this time, Mo Ting had just come out of his closet. As soon as he entered and saw Tongning, he turned to Long Jie and said, "I have something to say to Tongning." "Okay, I'll be right out." Long Jie tactfully turned around and closed the door. Tongning stood in front of the mirror and smiled at Mo Ting. Her smile was like a blooming lily, fresh and elegant. People couldn't help but look at her. "What do you want to say to me?" Mo Ting didn't say a word. He simply took big steps forward and hugged her from behind. He then twisted Tongning's neck and kissed her lips. "I want to kiss you, but more than that, I want to dote on you. I'm going to be late." Tongning's lips lingered on Mo Ting's. "I'll watch the live broadcast." Tongning nodded her head in satisfaction. She hooked her arm around Mo Ting's as they walked out of the villa. In reality, one look and one could tell they were a match made in heaven. Tongning was like the first snowfall, pure and holy. Mo Ting, on the other hand, was extremely seductive, like the dangerous darkness of the night. Long Jie was mesmerized by the sight of them. This was how a married couple should look. Unlike that jerk Han Yufan. Afterwards, Tongning boarded the car with Long Jie's help. On the way, Long Jie said as she drove, "The signing time is 9 a.m. We will arrive at around 8:50 a.m. Not too early, not too late, perfect. Your arrangements have never been a problem." Tongning lowered her head as she swiped through her phone. "Your flight is at 3 p.m. and Mo has arranged for anti-fans to wait for you at the airport. From what I can see, in her fan club, in order to slander you, they have arranged everything in an orderly manner. Some are responsible for taking photos and uploading them to the trending topics. Some are specifically looking for an opportunity to make a move on you to embarrass you, and some are pretending to be passers-by to confuse bystanders." Long Jie snorted disdainfully. This was the behavior of a group of primary school students. But it was also because of this that the behavior of primary school students brought the most harm to others. "How did you know all this?" Tongning was in disbelief. "It's because I have an alternate account in there." Long Jie snorted proudly. "Let the kids have fun. When the video is released, I wonder how badly their faces will be slapped." Being able to gather anti-fans was a testament to Mo's ability. Compared to the number of active fans she currently had, it was indeed pitifully small. But there were still a few who were looking forward to her appearance at the airport. 8:50 a.m., right on time, Tongning arrived at the hotel where the contract was to be signed. Under the watchful eyes of the media, she walked down the red carpet. Long Jie chose 8:50 a.m. because arriving too early would make her look bad. Of course, she couldn't be late either. So Long Jie controlled the timing perfectly. "Tongning, after the apology incident, you disappeared without a trace. The next time you reappeared, you stole Mo's endorsement. Was this all part of your plan?" This morning, Mo posted a few pictures of herself trying to stand up. "Is she accusing you of stealing the endorsement?" "Tongning, do you plan to make a comeback?" Tongning smiled the entire time, but did not answer a single question from the reporters. After entering the hotel, she followed HF's arrangements and was extremely cooperative. However, at this event that Han Yufan was supposed to be attending, he used work as an excuse and asked his assistant to take his place. This made the public feel that there was a rift between Tongning and Tianyi Entertainment. However, Han Yufan was indeed being held back by Mo Euro. How could she allow Han Yufan to go and support Tongning? Hai Rui Entertainment. Mo Ting was also watching the live broadcast from his office. On screen, Tongning did not fight or fight. She was beautiful and quiet, but it was impossible to ignore her. At the end of the contract signing, Mo Ting called his assistant over the intercom. In the afternoon, arrange for 4 bodyguards to protect Tongning until she boards the plane. Okay, President. Mo Ting knew on the surface, Tongning's endorsement deal appeared calm and collected, but underneath the surface, it was a turbulent situation. After the contract signing, Tongning and HF's founder had lunch together. At 1 p.m., Tongning left the hotel and headed straight for the airport. The closer they got to their destination, the more nervous Long Jie became. Tongning, I will do my best to protect you. You also need to protect yourself. Long Jie, did you think I wasn't prepared? Tongning maintained her calm smile. Now that everything was within their control, what was there to be afraid of? 3 years ago, she had already experienced everything. Afterwards, Long Jie got out of the car first. After retrieving her luggage, she helped Tongning out of the car. At first, no one noticed their presence. But as soon as they entered the airport, a large group of fans rushed towards Tongning with flowers in their arms. They forcefully shoved the flowers into Tongning's arms. However, Tongning did not hold on to them properly, so the flowers fell to the ground. At that moment, everyone was stunned. Seeing their good intentions being ruined, a fan wearing sunglasses and face mask immediately turned to Tongning and said, Tongning, what is the meaning of this? We gave you flowers because we liked you. How could you just throw them on the ground? Even famous celebrities wouldn't dare to treat their fans like this, let alone you, who aren't even famous yet. Of course, Tongning knew they were here to cause trouble, so she immediately apologized. Sorry, I didn't hold on to them properly. I didn't do it on purpose. What do you mean you didn't do it on purpose? I'm sure you did it on purpose. I saw it too, you threw them away on purpose. The anti-fans started guiding the passers-by with their words. They even raised their voices. With a character like yours, how could you compare to Euro? When Euro sees her fans, she always takes pictures with them. Did you think just because you accepted a deal, you could replace her? More and more people gathered to watch. More and more people were curious. Not long after, Tongning was surrounded by over 100 people. Because there were so many people, the anti-fans began their second step. They pushed and pulled at Tongning. Why did Euro stay famous for 3 years, while you were outdated? I now believe it wasn't without reason. You have a bad character. Look at how kind Euro is. Give the deal back to Euro. Exactly. Originally I quite liked you. But, how could you throw the flowers your fans gave you on the ground? You can't even compare to Euro's? You don't deserve to take Euro's deal. What trick did you use? Tell me. Chapter 17. The fans' questions grew louder and louder. Meanwhile, passers-by began to take photos and discuss amongst themselves. They felt Tongning had no manners. In comparison, they believed in Mo Euro's character more. Everyone surrounded Tongning, leaving her no room to retreat. So she calmed down and removed her sunglasses, revealing her bare face to the fans and passers-by. If you want me to answer your questions, that's fine. But first, can I ask a few questions? Go ahead. The anti-fans looked at her like they were waiting to see what tricks she could play. Firstly, you said you are my fans. In that case, can you tell me what year I debuted and what awards I received? As soon as the anti-fans heard this, they were stunned. How could they possibly understand Tongning? They hated her so much. We are all new fans. Anyways, if you threw the words I gave you onto the floor, then you are in the wrong. Whether or not I threw the flowers onto the floor, let's not talk about it for now. I'm sure all the cameras at the airport can clearly capture the scene. But, as soon as I threw the flowers, I already apologized to you. I'm sure everyone heard what I said. I also admit, as someone in the same industry, I still have a lot to learn from Euro. So, is there anything else you are not satisfied with? As Tongning spoke, her voice was soft and gentle. She did not sound forceful, but her words clearly indicated that this troublemaking woman was not her fan. It was because she kept mentioning that she was Mo Euro's fan. Coupled with the fact that Tongming had already apologized and was being polite, the passers-by once again began to have a change of attitude. They felt Mo Euro's fans were heartless and unreasonable. That's right, I also like Euro. We simply don't think you have the right to compete with her. You even stole her endorsement. Give it back to her. After speaking, the anti-fan began to push Tongming. Tongming stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Luckily, the bodyguards that Mo Ting had sent over quickly parted the crowd and held on to Tongming. At the same time, they also separated Tongming from the people around her. Long Jie couldn't take it anymore as she stood in front of the anti-fans and Tongming. She then turned to Tongming and said, "Go wait for me, I'll be right there." Okay. Tongming remained unfazed as she put on her sunglasses. If you don't give us an explanation today and return the endorsement to Euro, don't even think about boarding the plane. The anti-fans snorted as they held hands and formed a wall. Do you guys trust Mo Euro's character that much? Long Jie asked with a deeper meaning. Of course I'm not comparable to your cheap model. I recorded this. Long Jie lifted her phone. When the time comes, I will give you a big present. After speaking, Long Jie called the police. The police immediately sent people to escort Tongming. With the addition of Mo Ting's bodyguards, it didn't take long for Tongming to disappear from sight. However, before she left, she whispered something to the police. Tongming, Mo Euro has already made the topic of stealing her endorsement the number one. Long Jie said as she looked at her phone. Then what are we waiting for? Play the video. Tongming replied as she walked. I've been waiting for this moment. I'll let those fans see if the goddess in their hearts is a virgin or a bitch. After speaking, Long Jie dialed a familiar paparazzi number. Immediately upload the video we prepared. Han Yufan, let's see how many times you can save Mo Euro. Inside Tianyi Entertainment's Artists Lounge, Mo Euro was secretly happy that the topic had become the number one topic. On top of that, the photos sent by fans at the airport showed Tongming being bullied to the point where she couldn't fight back. How satisfying was this? She wanted Tongming to have a taste of her own medicine. Stealing her endorsement was only one of the prices she had to pay. Euro, with this popularity, I'm sure you will receive better endorsements than HF. Her assistant gave her a massage as she sucked up to her. Of course, I want to enter the top 10 model awards. Mo Euro smiled confidently. However, this was only because Han Yufan had given her confidence. For example, at this moment, Han Yufan suddenly appeared at the entrance of the lounge holding a contract. Come quickly, my top 10 model awards is here. Let's go to the meeting immediately. Mo Euro nodded her head. Her heart was filled with joy. A group of people immediately entered the meeting room to discuss the endorsement. Although Euro has lost her contract with HF, she has secured an international makeup brand. She is undoubtedly Tianyi's treasure. Han Yufan praised Mo Euro lovingly. As for Tongming, from now on, if anyone asks about her, tell them to reject her. She is getting married and will no longer discuss any endorsements. As soon as these words left his mouth, Mo Euro smiled even more happily. However, just as the two of them were exchanging flirtatious glances, Han Yufan suddenly received a phone call. At first, he had a smile on his face, but soon his expression darkened. Mr. Blair, how could you break your contract just like that? The indecent video of you and Mo Euro has already gone viral. I feel ashamed for the two of you. Trash. After one sentence, the other party hung up the phone. What happened? Mo Euro asked. The advertiser wants to settle it. At the same time, Han Yufan pulled out his phone and looked at the top search results. The top search was the video of him and Mo Euro in the hospital. This time it wasn't a photo, it was a video. A video that couldn't be denied. Not long after, Mo Euro leaned over and snatched the phone from his hand. After seeing the video, she was so shocked that she threw her phone to the floor. How could this be? How could this be? Everyone in the meeting room immediately pulled out their phones to search for the video. Meanwhile, Mo Euro acted like she had been caught red-handed as she yelled at everyone. Don't look, don't search. It's over, it's all over. Han Yufan was so angry he sat down in his chair. Who is going against me? Not only Tianyi Entertainment, even Mo Euro's official chat group was in an uproar. Today, they believed in Mo Euro's character and went to cause trouble for Tongning. In the end, they were slapped in the face in such a way. At this moment, Long Jie and Tongning had already stepped off the plane. Long Jie was also in the fan group. She looked at the anti-fans and laughed at herself. I never thought Mo Euro was such a slut, yet we were so infatuated with her. We must have been blind. From now on, I will hate Mo Euro for the rest of my life. Me too. Me too. Let's go admit our wrongdoings and prove Tongning's innocence. At the airport, we deliberately slandered her. I'm sure she knew deep down, but she didn't cause us any trouble. Plus, when the police were dealing with us, she even told them not to hurt us. I heard everything, but I didn't tell you, the fan said guiltily. Also, Mo Euro's assistant gave us Tongning's schedule. Posted up too. Seeing this, Long Jie's lips curved upwards. How satisfying. The slut and jerk must be panicking right now. Tongning, how can you be so smart? I really love you. Long Jie hugged Tongning and gave her a kiss. I don't love you. Tongning said with disdain. Then who do you love? President Mo. Tongning did indeed miss Mo Ting a little. She especially missed his kisses. Habits were a scary thing, especially poisonous habits. Chapter 18. In an instant, news of Han Yufan and Mo Euro spread across the entire city. It was a direct slap to the face to all the PR they had done in the past. On top of that, Han Yufan and Tongning were actually engaged. After the video was released, Mo Euro had stepped in between the two and became the third party. So she became known as a vixen. In addition, the media released news that the Crown Star incident was actually Han Yufan and Mo Euro's idea. In the end, the innocent Tongning had to take the blame. There was a lot of criticism on the internet. Following that, there was even more explosive news regarding today's airport incident. But, after Mo Euro's indecent video was exposed, the Mo Euro official chat group immediately released a statement to clarify that the incident at the airport was a pre-planned plot. They also pointed out that they were simply trying to help Mo Euro get back on the announcement, but they soon realized the idol they were trying to protect wasn't worth it. They also posted evidence that Mo Euro's assistant had posted Tongning's schedule in the group chat, as well as chat records of them discussing the division of work. In the end, they even wrote a clarification letter on Tongning's behalf, explaining that she did not throw flowers to humiliate her fans, and that she was being humble. Even though she knew she was being slandered, she still sincerely apologized. Most importantly, while the police were helping to maintain order, she was considerate enough to remind them not to be too rough in case they got hurt. This was a message sent by Mo Euro's official chat group. It also meant that Mo Euro's fan club was in complete disarray. Even her most loyal fans had turned against her. How could the public still believe Mo Euro's words? The media slandered each other, and the netizens went crazy. Even the advertisers that had used Mo Euro as their spokesperson immediately withdrew their advertisements and sent out letters from their lawyers. Seeing this, Mo Euro knew she was finished. She was completely finished. Euro, pull yourself together. You still have the child in your stomach. With this child, are you still afraid that President Han won't listen to you? Even if, in the end, you can't become a famous model, you can still be the wife of Tianyi's CEO. Seeing Mo Euro throw things around like crazy, her assistant immediately tried to comfort her. Don't get too worked up. You still have a long way to go. Hearing this, Mo Euro agreed. So what if Tongning made a comeback? She still had a small one in her belly. She still had a chance to win. As soon as Tongning stepped off the plane, she received a phone call from Mo Ting. At the same time, Long Jie quickly searched for the results of the battle. The situation was looking good. It seemed the slut wouldn't be able to make a comeback so easily. Should I congratulate my wife for winning yet another battle? Mo Ting sat in his swivel chair. Under the reflection of the sun, his firm facial features looked exceptionally handsome. Tongning giggled and pouted. Are you going to congratulate me every time I make a big move? Can't you tell? I was just looking for an excuse to call you. Tongning's heart raced. She said in a low voice, It's a pity we can't go home tonight. If I say I miss you, there might be a miracle, Emoting teased. Do you want to try? I miss you even without a miracle. But because she was a little embarrassed, she hung up the phone before Emoting could respond. On the other side of the phone, Emoting chuckled and immediately called Lu Che on the internal line. Help me arrange a ticket to Lucin. I want it as soon as possible. Also make sure all the documents I need to sign are on the plane. Tongning never expected she would be pleasantly surprised. As soon as she stepped off the plane, she rushed straight to work. As her contract with HF included a print advertisement, even though it was almost night time, Tongning still entered the studio. Accompanying her for the commercial were a few foreign models. Every single one of them were extremely professional. As soon as the photographer saw Tongning's calm demeanor, he couldn't help but worry if she would be able to meet the requirements of the commercial. Print advertisements required a model to be in sync with their body and spirit in an instant. In practically 1 second, they had to express the characteristics of the product. This was a huge test of a model's acting skills. Of course, because Tongning was wearing a long dress earlier, her good points were hidden. After she changed out of the dress, her golden ratio figure shocked everyone. Whether it was her height or her measurements, they were all in line with international standards. With the addition of her casual black printed A-line shorts paired with a dark, off-the-shoulder denim jacket, she looked extremely sexy. But as for her expression, the photographer was still worried. So he immediately walked over to Tongning and spoke to her. Today's shoot has a more wild style, like a stray cat out for a stroll at night. I understand. Tongning nodded her head calmly. The photographer did not say anything else. Asian models were only at this level. There was no need to have high expectations. Come, everyone get into position. Let's start with a solo shoot. Jason. The models that were called walked to the front of the screen one by one. They quickly and professionally completed their shoot. Tongning was the last one. Because she was the last one, she was under a lot of pressure. After all, in terms of appearance, she didn't have the same advantages as the foreigners. If her acting wasn't good, she would easily become a foil. Tongning. Hearing the cameraman's call, Tongning walked over to the front of the screen wearing HF's Enchanted Night series bracelets. The cameraman kept trying to teach her what positions to use to express her wildness, but Tongning just laughed it off, indicating that she understood. The photographer hated it when people pretended to understand. So after a few words, he impatiently walked back with his camera. Let's take one to see how it goes. No need, just do it, Tongning requested. Seeing how confident she was, the photographer's curiosity was immediately aroused. You said it yourself. Once I start, I won't give anyone a second chance. Okay, Tongning replied calmly. The other models all felt Tongning was digging her own grave. She was obviously given a chance, but she didn't want it. What was she trying to do? In that case, let's start. The photographer waved his hand at Tongning. Tongning nodded her head. Then in front of everyone's expectant eyes, it only took her 1 second to get into character, surprising everyone. She naturally spread her legs apart and used her left hand to hold onto her right wrist. She then gently opened her lips and bit down on the middle finger of her left hand. At that moment, everyone was shocked by the look in her eyes. It was too aggressive. Compared to her previous weak look, it was like heaven and earth. What was even more surprising was, the necklace in her hand was like the source of her wild nature. It was like she was one with the model. The photographer was stunned. Where did HF find such a treasure? Her professionalism didn't lose out to any of the international supermodels. Chapter 19. Above all. Why did she have the confidence to say she didn't need any adjustments and could start straight away? Because she practically had to change her pose every 3 seconds. However, No matter if Tongming was lazy, casual, aggressive or cute, as long as the photographer asked her to change her pose, she would immediately jump into action. Her speed was astonishing. Long Jie was also standing to the side, seeing Tongming return to the Tongming from before. She was so touched she almost burst into tears. Not only were her eyes filled with tears, she even pulled out her phone and snapped photos of Tongming in various poses. She wanted to send them to Mo Ting. Because of Tongming, she was lucky enough to know President Mo's phone number. Of course, at this time, Mo Ting was still on a plane. During the 4-hour shoot, Tongming used her professionalism to win over the photographer and a few other people in the industry. Even Mr. O, who had previously told Tongming to get lost, couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. He even explained to Tongming that he couldn't control his emotions because he had been tricked. After removing her makeup, Tongming returned to her usual calm self. She treated everyone with a pleasant smile, making Mr. Yuren's impression of her rise. Long Jie quickly covered Tongming with a jacket and handed her the blinking phone. Han Yufan is calling. Tongming's expression did not change, but her eyes darkened a little. She still picked up the phone. Hello? Tongming, have you seen or heard any news? Han Yufan asked tentatively. What's wrong? Tongming pretended to be calm as she asked. What happened? Nothing. Han Yufan was certain Tongming was in Lucin and had no idea what was going on, so an idea popped up in his mind. Tongming, why don't I fly to Lucin tomorrow, and we can register our marriage there? The scenery there is beautiful and pleasant. We can go on a vacation and treat it as a honeymoon. Han Yufan wanted to tie Tongming down as soon as possible. In reality, Tongming came from an extraordinary background. She was the daughter of a famous perfume family. However, because she was with Han Yufan, her family was strongly against it. So in recent years, their relationship had been strained to the point where they could no longer see each other. But her surname was Tang. Even after the Tang family passed away, she would still share the inheritance with the Tang family. Han Yufan had refused to break up with her, not only because Tongming was silly and gullible, but also because of the inheritance. Now that the video of him and Mo Euro had been released, he had no choice but to hurry and register their marriage before Tongming could react. Since you and Mo Euro are still unclear, let's not get married. Tongming rejected straightforwardly. There's really nothing going on between me and Euro. The photos you saw were all a misunderstanding. The photo was a misunderstanding, but what about the video? I am indeed in Lucin, but Lucin is also in this country. Did you think I wouldn't be able to see the top searches? Or am I really that easy to coax and deceive in your heart? Tongming, I didn't do it on purpose. You need to believe me. We've been together for so many years. Don't you know what kind of person I am? Han Yufan pretended to be pitiful and played the pity card. That's just her one-sided love. The person I love is you. Then, what if I say Tianyi Entertainment will either have her or I? Tongming asked determinedly. Tongming, I always thought you were the person that understood me the most. Why must you force me like this? Han Yufan was in pain. He didn't want to give up on either side. Mo Euro was his first love, and she was pregnant with his child. As for Tongming, all of a sudden, Han Yufan didn't know what to choose. If you think I'm forcing you, you can look for Mo Euro. She is very understanding. Must it be like this? At this time, Han Yufan had already decided to give up on Mo Euro. After all, Mo Euro's background was nothing special. The only reason she was able to get to where she was today was because of him. Compared to Tongming, she was just a plaything. Give me some time. Let me find a chance to speak to Euro. When the time comes, we will get married immediately. Then I'll be waiting. Tongming's words seemed calm, but they were filled with a sense of contempt. How could someone like Mo Euro let Han Yufan go? She had a child in her stomach. Long Jie looked at Tongming's disdainful expression and immediately grabbed the phone from her hand. From now on, let's not pick up his phone calls. In case it ruins our mood. Let's go back to the hotel. I'm a little tired. Tongming smiled casually. Long Jie nodded her head and immediately led her back to the hotel. Their rooms were separated by a wall. Long Jie opened the door for Tongming and reminded, Have a good rest. Don't think too much about it. You still have an outdoor shoot tomorrow. Okay. Tongming nodded her head and closed the door. However, as soon as she turned around, she heard the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. So she asked cautiously, "Who's inside?" The person inside seemed to have heard her voice as he reached out his hand to turn off the tap. Tongming was afraid she had entered the wrong room. So just as she was about to reach the door, a tall figure suddenly emerged from the bathroom and wrapped his arms around her waist. "It's me." Tongming turned around and saw Emo Ting. She was a little surprised. Why? Didn't I tell you? I'll give you a miracle. Emo Ting put her down and placed a kiss on her lips. I was too tired on the plane, so I thought I'd take a shower. Tongming's head buzzed. She never expected Emo Ting's words to be true. She immediately wrapped her arms around Emo Ting's slim waist. "Wifey, do you want me to remind you that I'm not wearing anything?" After hearing this, Tongming subconsciously looked down as her face flushed red. "In that case, you can take a shower first. But I want to be with you." After speaking, Emo Ting did not wait for Tongming to react as he lifted her onto his shoulder and domineeringly carried her into the bathroom. He placed her under the shower head, lifted her chin, and gave her a passionate kiss. Don't be so forceful. We still have a commercial to shoot tomorrow." Tongming still had a little bit of rationality left. Emo Ting's lips curved into a mischievous smile as he shifted his gaze downwards. "What about here?" Separated by a layer of clothing, Tongming trembled a little and quickly lost her rationality. Under the shower head, the couple kissed passionately and hugged each other. However, they did not reach the final step. However, the couple were extremely satisfied. After their showers, one quietly applied her skincare, while the other leaned against the bed to look through some documents. Seeing this, Tongming's heart ached a little. "You're already here, yet you still have to work?" Emo Ting lifted his head and closed the documents. He then waved at Tongming and waited for her to sit in his arms before he smiled apologetically. "It's become a habit. Am I that unattractive? Today, Han Yufan even called and said he wanted to marry me." Tongming complained to Emo Ting in a sad tone. Chapter 20. Emo Ting wrapped his arm around Tongming's waist and pulled her closer to his chest. He then whispered dangerously into her ear. "In that case, will you marry me? I admit, I was once blind, but now I am certain of my direction." Tongming mumbled, "You are my direction." Emo Ting flipped over and pressed her under his body. He stared at her seriously with his ink-black eyes. "I'm almost losing control of myself. But it's not enough. Although we've registered our relationship in advance, I still hope that after you get to know me better and decide to live with me for the rest of your life, I hope that when we acknowledge each other, then we can truly have each other. This industry is full of colors. I have everything I want, but there is no such thing as pure sincerity. In that case, let's work hard together and work towards the same goal. We will walk the same path and live the same life." Tongming replied in seriousness. "I never thought President Mo, who is at the top of the entertainment industry, doesn't want to live a carefree and happy life. I thought you could have a bunch of wives and concubines. Have you really never been moved?" When a woman asks a question like this, you usually can't answer honestly. All you need to do is respond with a passionate kiss. After speaking, Emo Ting's kiss landed on her lips. Just like he said, an intimate kiss would make a lover forget their worries. Because of Emo Ting's embrace, Tongming slept extremely soundly that night. Compared to Tongming's happiness, Han Yufan's life was not so good. Tongming had requested for Emo Euro to leave Tianyi Entertainment, but Emo Euro was pregnant with his child and had a lot of dirt on him. He couldn't afford to offend either side. With an anxious heart, Han Yufan drove back to his apartment. Seeing Emo Euro sitting gloomily on the sofa, his heart didn't feel too good either. "Yufan." Emo Euro cried as she pounced into his arms and wrapped her arms tightly around his waist. "What should I do? Does this mean I can't be a model anymore? Euro, why don't you go overseas for a while? After our baby is born, you can come back. When that time comes, I promise I will support you like I did in the past and make you famous. When Moyuro heard this, her body stiffened. She immediately understood what he meant. You want me to go abroad? How can you let me go abroad? Han Yufan, are you planning to sacrifice me? Let me tell you, I'm not as stupid as Tongning to believe your lies. I will never leave. Plus, Han Yufan, don't forget, I have your child in my stomach. I've been your lover for so many years. Do you really want to kick me away? That's not what I meant. Han Yufan, think carefully. Who do you want to spend the rest of your life with? Do you love Tongning? Of course I love you, only you. Han Yufan said painfully, but Tongning made a condition. If you don't leave Tianyi, she won't marry me. Even if you marry her, you won't necessarily get everything from the Tang family. Moyuro analyzed in seriousness. The Tang family has long given up on Tongning. Even if she were to return, what would she get? Yufan, could it be that you want to lose everything and not get anything in the end? If you are with me, at least you will have me and our child. Our family of 3 will be able to build a bright future. But what if you become Tongning's son-in-law? You will be controlled by someone else for the rest of your life. Is that what you want? Yufan, think carefully. Do you want me or Tongning? As long as you say the word, I will immediately go to the hospital and abort this child. I will leave Tianyi and never appear again. Han Yufan did not respond. He was stunned in place. Seeing he did not move, Moyuro immediately pulled out her phone and gave her assistant a phone call. Arrange a hospital for me. I want to have an abortion. What are you doing? Han Yufan snatched the phone from her hand. Don't be so hot-tempered. Did I say I wasn't going to choose you? Hearing this, Moyuro was overjoyed. Does that mean you're going to choose me? The person I love the most is you. If you want to take the child to have an abortion, what else can I do? All these years, I've been protecting you. Can't you tell? Han Yufan had made up his mind to end things with Tongning. It was a pity the Tang family had a strong background. But just like Moyuro said, no one knew what would happen in the end. He couldn't give up on Moyuro and the child in her stomach because of something that didn't exist. I knew you treat me the best. Moyuro's tears turned into a smile as she gave Han Yufan a big hug. I will definitely give birth to a son for you. I will make your sister, and your mother happy. If you don't cause so much trouble for me, I will be thankful. Don't go online too much and don't listen to the scolding online. News like this will pass after a bit of hype. Although this news will have an impact on the top 10 model awards, this award still places more emphasis on a model's professionalism. So we shouldn't give up yet. I'll listen to you. But there is one thing you need to listen to me on. Moyuro pulled Han Yufan over to sit on the sofa. Continue to ignore Tongning. Look at how arrogant she is right now. It's because she just accepted a deal that she feels confident and wants to go against the agency. But Tianyi doesn't lack Tongning. Isn't it easy to find a model? Moyuro suggested. We can't let her go either. If she gets the chance, she will definitely take revenge on us. Let's drag her along and hide her until 3 to 5 years have passed. By that time, she will have gotten older and won't be able to make a comeback. But right now, Tongning's popularity is quite high and she has a good reputation. Isn't that easy? After she returns from Lucen, you can assign her to a low-end and disgusting commercial platform. Her image will immediately fall to rock bottom. Han Yufan looked at Moyuro. Even though he knew what she was doing was a bit overboard, Han Yufan couldn't reject her. All he could do was nod his head. I'll listen to you. Also, if Tongning wants to work with us, we will reject them all. Tell them she doesn't want to accept them. Han Yufan hugged Moyuro and placed a kiss between her eyebrows. This time, he had decided to end things with Tongning from the bottom of his heart. After that, Tongning would simply be assigned model of Tianyi Entertainment. Plus, she still had 3 years left on her contract. Just like Moyuro said, he couldn't allow Tongning to become famous and find an opportunity to take revenge on them. So, all he could do was continue to step all over Tongning. Chapter 21. The next day, it was time to film the commercial. Originally, Tongning was supposed to work with a few other models, but the photographer felt Tongning's presence was too strong. If there were too many people, they would only serve as a foil for her. So he only kept one male model. Early in the morning, Long Jie knocked on Tongning's door. However, when Tongning opened the door, it was obvious she was trying to cover it up. She didn't want Long Jie to enter. Long Jie suddenly glared at Tongning and asked, "Is there someone else in your room?" Tongning, how could you be like this? Although you've already broken up with that jerk, you've only just married President Mo. How could you act so recklessly outside? Let me in, let me in. Let me see who has the guts to seduce my Tongning. Long Jie was a little agitated and used a lot of strength. Just as she was about to push the door open, Mo Ting suddenly reached out his hand to hold on to the door. His tall figure immediately enveloped the two of them. "Big boss, it's you." Long Jie was dumbfounded as she let out a silly laugh. Mo Ting glanced at Long Jie with a hint of approval in his eyes. With her around, Mo Ting was reassured that other men wouldn't get a chance to get close to Tongning. So, he did not say a word as he headed straight into the bathroom to wash up. After Mo Ting left, Long Jie leaned on Tongning's arm and said, "Why didn't you tell me earlier? You made me lose so much face." "I only noticed it when I came in last night." Tongning shrugged innocently. "Oh God, this is so romantic. President Mo is such a busy person. Yet he flew all the way here to accompany you. Tongning, your luck has really changed. Think about it, you've been with that jerk for so many years. When has he ever visited you at work?" Long Jie was filled with excitement. As expected, there are differences between people. "Are you still going to the set?" Tongning reminded, even though her reaction last night was no different to Long Jie's. "Will President Mo be going?" "I think so," Tongning replied in a low voice. Since he was already here, how could he not see Tongning's performance? The show at Haiyi Hall had already left him with an unforgettable memory. What would Tongning look like when she was filming on location? He was looking forward to Tongning's performance. 30 minutes later, the three of them arrived at the photography studio. As they couldn't reveal their identities, Mo Ting could only look at Tongning from afar. She had just stepped out of the simple changing room. She was wearing a light blue lace dress, revealing her curvaceous figure. Especially her seemingly endless long legs. They were perfect, like the work of a sculptor. The theme of today's shoot was a bride chasing after an escaped groom. In the process, the bride hurt her foot, but the groom didn't notice it. In the end, the dazzling diamond in the bride's hand drew out a rainbow under the sun. It also reminded the groom of his promise to the bride. In the end, the groom returned and the two reconciled. "Tongning, your emotions are a little volatile today. Are you okay?" The cameraman from yesterday had turned back into today's director as he asked. "No problem." Tongning gently nodded her head. The director made an okay gesture at her, and then reminded her to get into position. "Do you want to move around?" "No need." Tongning rejected the director's suggestion. If the director had not interacted with Tongning the day before, he may have been suspicious of her. But after witnessing her professionalism, the director had complete trust in her. So when she said no, they immediately started. As the entire commercial had no lines and had to be controlled within a short 30 seconds, the models were required to get into character very quickly. The scene they were going to shoot was Tongning chasing after the groom. So, her expression had to be extremely anxious. From a hopeful expression, it slowly turned into a look of despair. Filming was about to start, but Tongning did not need any reminders. She quickly found her way to the camera. As soon as the sound of the clappers rang out, Tongning's shadow disappeared and was replaced by an abandoned bride. She looked around in search of something as her eyes quickly turned red. However, tears did not fall from her eyes. Most importantly, she even took some time to catch her breath after running. Her emotions seemed to grow as she searched for the person she was looking for. That kind of anxiousness seemed to be driving her to the brink of collapse. Mo Ting looked at Tongning from afar and realized she was like a piece of unpolished jade covered in dust. No wonder 3 years ago, she was able to come out on top. If she hadn't retreated back then, how glorious would she be right now? President Mo, our Tongning isn't bad, right? Long Jie couldn't hide the pride in her eyes. If only she hadn't been held back by that jerk. From now on, no one can hold her back, Mo Ting said coldly as he turned around and boarded the car. Long Jie smiled. Of course, she knew Tongming would never give anyone the chance to bully her again. However, she trusted the man sitting in the car more because he had an empire. Because of Tongming's professionalism, the shoot went smoothly and saved the director half a day of time. The director had high hopes for Tongming, so he extended an olive branch to her. I heard your current agency doesn't know how to plan your career. Are you interested in moving on to a bigger stage? Tongming accepted the business card, but still rejected. I'm fine at the moment. The director did not force Tongming, he simply smiled. Even so, you are welcome at any time. Tongming thanked him and was about to walk over to Mo Ting when Long Jie suddenly ran over with her phone. Just now, a woman called Lin Wei gave you a call. She claims to be the manager Han Yufan assigned to you. She also said after you finish filming, you need to rush back immediately. Han Yufan has accepted an event on your behalf. It will be held in 3 days. I just checked the brand. Although it isn't a no-name product, it has received many complaints from consumers. Han Yufan is trying to destroy you. Tongming grabbed the phone and looked at it calmly. Let's talk when we get back. It wasn't easy for you to accumulate this popularity. If you accept this event, all your hard work will go to waste. Long Jie's heart ached for Tongming. Long Jie, did you think I didn't prepare myself? Tongming sneered. She never expected that Han Yufan would give up on his Tang family background so easily and choose Mo Euro. I've said it before, strengths and weaknesses are sometimes separated by a single word, and they are separated by a thin line. I won't let the cards in my hand get ruined again. Not too far away, Mo Ting was sitting in the car. Their eyes met as they smiled in unison. After Tongming boarded the car, Mo Ting handed the phone to her. I asked Lu Che to pull up this manager called Lin Wei from the database. Her resume, and all the dirt she has on her is inside. Chapter 22. You also know about the event that Han Yufan arranged for me to do? Tongming turned her head and looked at Long Jie in surprise. She thought Long Jie had told Mo Ting, but Long Jie quickly waved her hand to show that it had nothing to do with her. In this industry, as long as I want to know, I will know. At this moment, Tongming no longer felt it was strange how Mo Ting had reached the top of the entertainment industry. So she smiled at Mo Ting. Don't worry, you've already handed me the knife to kill my enemies. I will definitely resolve this matter perfectly. Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply stretched out his hand and patted Tongming on the head. Long Jie looked at them and felt goosebumps all over her body. These two had obviously not been married for long. How did they manage to look like an old married couple that had been married for 10 years? After the commercial shoot was over, the three of them returned to Beijing. However, on the plane, Tongming and Mo Ting were still leaning against each other. But after they landed, they went their separate ways like strangers. Han Yufan even sent his new manager, Lin Wei, to pick them up. At the airport exit, the manager Lin Wei was wearing a light purple chiffon skirt, 10-inch heels and sunglasses. She had her arms crossed and was constantly looking down at her watch. Her entire body exuded an impatient aura. It was as if she was the international superstar that was supposed to be welcomed. Tongming noticed the sign that Lin Wei had placed beside her feet with her name written on it. She ignored Lin Wei and directly walked out of the airport with Long Jie. Long Jie let out a laugh. Tongming was becoming more and more like her own temper. However, halfway to the airport, Tongming received a phone call from Lin Wei. Tongming, where are you? Didn't the plane say it was going to land at 12 p.m.? I'm already on my way back to the office, Tongming replied calmly. Didn't you see me when you left the airport? I saw you. Tongming replied calmly without the slightest hint of emotion. Then why didn't you come looking for me? Lin Wei was furious. You were wearing sunglasses. I thought you were at the airport for a fashion show. Tongming replied sarcastically. Lin Wei's face turned red. She hung up the phone and rushed to the office. She had been in the industry for a long time, but she was extremely short-sighted. Although she managed to make a few artists famous, They either offended the rich or were sent to rehab. As a result, her reputation as a manager was notorious within the industry. This time, Mo Euro invited her over to teach Tongning a lesson. Who would have thought, before she even saw Tongning, she would be tricked by Tongning? So, she couldn't accept it. Tongning was at most a has-been model. How dare she look down on her? 20 minutes later, Tongning arrived at the office first. As soon as she stepped through the main entrance of Tianyi Entertainment, she immediately pushed open Han Yufan's office. I'm waiting for your explanation. So, what happened between you and Mo Euro is real, right? Han Yufan stopped his work, hesitated for a moment, and slyly changed the topic. You just got off the plane. Why did you come directly to the company? How long has it been? Tongning continued. How long have you been together with Mo Euro? Tongning! Han Yufan suddenly yelled. I've had enough of you. Do you know how annoying you are? Can't you be like Euro and do something to please a man? Which woman is like you nagging nonstop every day? Tongning slowly retracted her hands and looked at Han Yufan playfully. What do you two think I am? A toy. Tongning, let's break up. I am indeed together with Euro, and we are truly in love. When Han Yufan spoke to Tongning, it was like he was speaking to a stranger. It had nothing to do with him. Don't blame me. Love is not something that can be explained by logic. From now on, we will only have a superior and subordinate relationship. I am your boss and you are my artist. Tongning's lips curved upwards in ridicule. She was calmer than Han Yufan expected. So, you don't plan on letting me off the hook? Because you know if you let me go, Mo Euro will never be able to make it big again. I'm sorry. You will have to wait another 3 years. Just because of this, you arranged for me to take part in a promotional event. Tongning continued to question. With your current status, this promotional event is more than enough for you. After speaking, Han Yufan sat back down in his chair and flipped open a document. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Also, Lin Wei is your new manager. From now on, you will have to listen to her arrangements. 5 years it turned out. It was all for the sake of a dog. Tongning couldn't say her heart didn't ache, but more than that, she was angry. Do you know what happens to people who are fickle and emotionless? They don't have a good ending. After speaking, Tongning turned around and left Han Yufan's office. Of course, her determination to make Tianyi Entertainment disappear from the entertainment industry was still strong and determined. Tongning returned to her room. At this time, Lin Wei also rushed back from the airport. Without even knocking on the door, she walked straight in, pointed at Tongning and scolded. Do you know from today onwards, you are my artist? Do you still want to be a model and take on endorsements? How dare you treat me like this? Are you a pig? After hearing these words, Tongning suddenly stood up from her chair and took one step at a time towards Lin Wei. Can you repeat those last 4 words? I asked you if you are a pig? Lin Wei asked arrogantly. Just as she finished speaking, Tongning's slap landed on her face. This slap is to teach you how to be a person. Lin Wei was shocked. Her eyes grew wide, and she was about to retaliate when Tongning pulled out her phone and showed it to her. I have a lot of scandals like this on my phone. Based on the 4 words you just said, I have decided to send them to 4 different media outlets. Lin Wei was stunned for a moment. She didn't understand the meaning behind Tongning's words. Afterwards, she saw the evidence of her seducing the director on the screen, and her mind went blank. This is impossible. How could Tongning have these photos? She was so careful. This is impossible, it must be fake. I know you have Mo Euro backing you up. If you don't cross the line, I won't bother dealing with a mere manager, but you don't know what's good for you. Lin Wei began to feel fear as her hands began to tremble. If she had known Tongning had something on her, she would never have agreed to torture Tongning. So, she immediately changed her expression and knelt in front of Tongning. Tongning, I didn't do this on purpose. Please don't send these photos out. If you do, I will ruin everything. Tongning lowered her head and looked at Lin Wei. In a serious tone she said, I will only say this once. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them, but if someone offends me, I will make sure they never get the chance to reincarnate. From today onwards, you do your job well, and I will do my job well as a model. If you want to play tricks and scheme, I am more than happy to play along. But the price won't be just these few photos being exposed. At this moment, Tongning was extremely ruthless and domineering. Lin Wei couldn't get used to it. Didn't they say Tongning was a pushover? I understand. I know what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Lin Wei was completely stunned by Tongning's actions. After venting her anger, Tongning's emotions had returned to normal. So her tone returned to normal as she asked Lin Wei, "How long have you arranged for me to appear on the commercial platform?" You want to go?" Lin Wei didn't understand what Tongning was thinking. "You just need to tell me the time." Tongning repeated her question. Chapter 23. Lin Wei's eyes were still filled with tears. After wiping them away, she stood up and thought for a moment before replying confidently. "The 26th, next Wednesday. Did Mo Euro ask you to help me reject all the runway shows and endorsements?" Tongning guessed. "Yes. Record down every deal. Every email from our business partners, save it as evidence. I need it next Wednesday," Tongning instructed calmly. "If you have any sense of judgment, you should know that following me is better than following Mo Euro. Simply because she is a mistress, she will never be able to step onto the international stage." After hearing Tongning's words, Lin Wei suddenly had a guess. Why did Mo Euro keep getting into trouble recently, while Tongning's popularity continued to grow? All along the way, Mo Euro had relied on acting pitiful to gain sympathy, while Tongning used Mo Euro as a stepping stone to survive. Lin Wei weighed the pros and cons and decided to follow Tongning. "I will prepare everything for you." Tongning nodded her head. Just as she was about to leave, she seemed to have thought of something as she turned around and warned Lin Wei. "If you don't have the ability to handle PR properly, then don't do anything that will cause me to be tarnished. To put it simply, if you can't prevent yourself from being photographed, then don't go around flirting." Lin Wei's face turned pale. This was the first time she had come across an artist that could plan for her future without batting an eyelid. It seemed apart from seducing men, Mo Euro had no other abilities. She could only wait for Tongning to take care of Tianyi Entertainment. It was still early when Tongning returned to her car, looking tired. Seeing her, Long Jie's heart ached. "Did you argue with Han Yufan?" Han Yufan mentioned breaking up. Tongning replied calmly. She leaned her head back and slowly closed her eyes, not wanting to reveal her emotions. "Long Jie, did you know?" When Han Yufan said this, it was like he was reading from someone else's textbook. "He even wants to freeze me for 3 years. How can that jerk be so shameless? Isn't he afraid of being struck by lightning?" Long Jie scolded. Seeing Tongning in pain, she gently patted Tongning's arm. "Don't feel bad because of a man like that. Sooner or later, you will make him pay tenfold. I'm not at the stage where I can control my emotions. Take me home," Tongning pleaded. "Okay, you rest." Han Yufan's cold-heartedness was definitely not the only thing he wanted her to do. She knew, as soon as Mo Euro opened her mouth, he would do even more despicable things. She had to stop Mo Euro from interfering with her once and for all. By the time Mo Ting returned home, it was already 8 p.m. However, when he arrived home, he did not smell the aroma of food. All he felt was the room was empty. Originally, he thought Tongning hadn't returned home yet. But as soon as he entered the bedroom, he noticed Tongning lying quietly on the bed. Needless to say, she must have suffered. Mo Ting sat down on the edge of the bed. As soon as Tongning sensed his familiar scent, she immediately sat up and wrapped her arms around him. "If you want to cry, then cry. You will feel better after crying," Mo Ting comforted as he patted Tongning on the shoulder. But, after being comforted by Mo Ting, the feeling of being wronged immediately made her cry. "I'm sorry. I promised you I wouldn't cry over things that weren't worth it. Go ahead and cry. Apart from me, who else can you remove your disguise in front of?" Mo Ting encouraged Tongning. Perhaps it was because Mo Ting's hands were too gentle. Or perhaps it was because Mo Ting was older than Tongning by 7 years. Tongning cried in Mo Ting's arms for a long time until she could no longer cry. "Are you done?" Mo Ting asked. "I'm done." Tongming pulled back from Emoting's arms. I'm sure you haven't eaten yet. I'll go make dinner. However, Emoting did not do anything else. He simply grabbed onto Tongming's chin and kissed her passionately on the lips. Not only did he take away the salty taste from her lips, he also used his unique scent to comfort the woman in pain in his arms. A kiss was the best medicine for healing, and also the best painkiller. The couple kissed passionately as they gasped for breath. Tongming, I hope no matter if you are sad or happy, I will be the first to know. I don't care how many masks you wear on the outside, but when we return home, we need to be honest with each other. We will be a normal couple, and we will only be the person that the other person needs. Emoting wiped away the tears on Tongming's cheeks and stood up. I told you, you're not allowed to enter the kitchen again. Seeing Emoting turn around, Tongming quickly grabbed onto his arm. I need you right now. I need you to stay with me, hug me and kiss me. I need strength to kiss you. Tongming held back her tears as she lifted the blankets and climbed out of bed. She then held onto Emoting's hand. In that case, I'll stay with you. The couple ate a warm dinner and took a simple shower. After returning to bed, Emoting was leaning against the headboard reading some documents, while Tongming was preparing to fall asleep. But she couldn't fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. What's wrong? I can't sleep. Can you read me a passage from a book? Tongming peeked out from under the blankets and pleaded. It was only in front of Emoting that she wasn't as calm as she was in front of Longjia. In front of Emoting, she was completely like a little wife that needed pampering. Of course, in front of Tongming, Emoting wasn't the same Emoting as before. If he was dealing with a subordinate like Tongming, he would have already thrown the documents in front of his face. But this was Tongming. So, he casually grabbed a book from the bookshelf and returned to bed. He wrapped Tongming in his embrace, and the couple opened the book together. This was a simple matter, but it turned out, the jerk from a small company would never do something like this for her. Instead, it was the king of the entertainment industry who was willing to do something so boring for her. As the scars in her heart slowly healed, Tongming quickly fell asleep in Emoting's embrace. And as usual, she had a sweet night. The next morning, the air was slightly damp. Tongming was woken up by a phone call from Lin Wei. Her voice was much gentler than the day before. Tongming, I just went to your apartment, but only your assistant was there. I've moved. I just wanted to tell you that after President Han announced that you were going to appear on the platform, the fans that you had just gathered began to jump out in anger. They are fighting amongst themselves. They claimed that if you were to appear on the platform of this brand, you would be supporting a fake brand. They can't accept it, and are prepared to leave you as a fan. What's Mo Euro's stance on this? Tongming asked. She can't wait to see you suffer. It was Mo Euro's idea to appear on the platform of this brand. Not only does she want to suppress you, she wants you to suffer a fate worse than death. In that case, let's see who will suffer a fate worse than death next Wednesday. Tongming replied with a deeper meaning. For now, don't worry about your fans. Let them scold you. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.